Okay, welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Mindset. It's Pete Deeley. Uh, every week, as I've told you guys, the divine brings me somebody wonderful to talk to. This week is no exception. I have been haranguing my guest for a bit, trying to convince him to spend an hour with me, and he relented. And often you might say that love is time is a good approximate for love. As I was preparing to talk to today's guest, a lot of people spent a fair amount of time talking to me about him and suggesting questions and ways of having the conversation. So he's very well loved in his community. So much so that I'm going to have to schedule him for about 342 different episodes to cover everything everybody asked me to talk to him about. Before I do that, I'll just remind you that those of you who are drinking Submission coffee out there, you're safe. They have not identified this as a performance enhancing drug, so you can drink it safely. And if you want to join the crew, the jujitsumindset.com, you can get your coffee along with any of the t-shirts we have there as well. So with that, I'm very grateful to be talking to you, Professor Michael Casey. Thank you for making time for me.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we've had some fun back and forth leading up into this, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you in a little bit that I have. And there's a million different ways we could start. But I wanted to ask you a little bit, and when it comes to learning jujitsu, about the value of being introduced to it in a manner in which it's relaxed and even playful. I think different people come to martial arts for different reasons, and sometimes something has happened, and so the notion of protecting yourself has this violent connotation. Like if I can imagine, I don't want that fight to ever happen again, or I don't want to be, or I can think of myself as a very young kid watching Bruce Lee and thinking, oh, I would like to have that type of physical power. But those are not relaxed like ideas, where when I listen to Professor Vinny, who, I talk to, or, even read, Breathe by Rickson, and when they talk about introducing the kids to jiu-jitsu, it's often through play and sort of a relaxed environment. And so maybe that applies to everybody. And I thought maybe we could start with that as a value, as a useful tool.
Sure. So, but what do you want to, as far as if there's a specific question to that, or is it a matter of like why do we want to introduce children that way? What are you looking, where are you looking to go down this road a little bit on?
I think what interests me about it is children, adults, or whatever, that for me, like jujitsu is not intuitive. It's taken a long time to just to understand the most basic of things. And so if somebody approached me from the very beginning, like with a game or a relaxed motion, I think I would have learned quicker than being put in a situation where, okay, here's the specific situation, go.
Right.
Like you spend 10 minutes, all right, here's the explanation of what this is supposed to happen. And it's a little bit of a trial by fire experience rather than um, hey, this is a game we're going to play here for a minute, or just take it easy, relax. We're going to do it slowly. Does that make the question a little clearer?
Yeah. So I feel like children and adults come at it from opposite ends, and
Okay.
and and this happens across the spectrum of training. So it's not uncommon that we bring kids into jujitsu and we teach them how to play because kids want to play.
Right.
And then the games, jujitsu is disguised in the games, and nobody has a license on that. That's a very common, intelligent way to approach education for children.
Right.
There's no need to explain a lot to them. They just let them have fun and
Right.
let them know that they're doing well, and they'll never stop.
Right.
Those are the two keys, right? And what's true for children becomes eventually you start to realize it's true for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, Same thing with adults. If I want to keep adult students training longer, what I have to really do is make sure one, that they have fun, they enjoy being there, and that they know they're doing better.
Right.
So good at something and you have fun doing it, you don't stop. But that's self-indulgent almost. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of which angle you approach it from. So for an adult, you're not going to come into my school asking me, "Hey, I see this thing you're doing. Can I play a game?" I don't need to trick you.
Right.
I
Yes.
need,
Yes.
you're going to come to me or at the school you go to for a kind of a specific result. If they can then make it fun and teach you to do something that feels game-like, or the word now in the industry of business is gamification.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Right.
we gamify things.
Yeah.
That's the adult version of the same thing. If I can gamify the room of jujitsu a little bit and make it okay for you to laugh
Right.
and you to
Yes.
laugh at yourself and
Yeah.
have fun and be comfortable in your skin,
Right.
that's both the beginning of getting you there and the secret to keeping you there.
Yes.
It's very simple, honestly. And then the kids go the other way. We start teaching them the game,
Yes.
and then they start learning from the other end the diagnostics a little bit more. Like you're interested in the diagnostics right away. The
Right.
kids aren't.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
interested in the game. And eventually your paths will kind of overlap and they'll become more diagnostic oriented and you'll become more comfortable game oriented. But at the end of the day, you're swimming in the same pool.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just they entered from the waiting area. You could, from the deep end, you can go a little bit and learn to go into their side a little. So yeah, I think it's good for everybody for a
Ma-
lot of reasons.
It makes sense. And as big a role as jujitsu and the martial arts have been in your life as a father in your son Declan, how d- how did you introduce him into this world to make sure that he had that experience? Sometimes that's kids are attracted to what the parents are doing. Sometimes they reject it because they just don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
there can be a variety of different things. So I'm curious what the dynamic was like at the beginning, and did he take to it right away or not in terms of liking it? Not his skills per se.
Well, again, play. So if my
Yeah.
kids like to play and they like to be around me, there's a couple of hurdles to get past first.
Okay.
First, your kids have to like being around you. Like if I'm
Right.
going to drag them to my school,
Yeah.
but they don't even want to be with me in the first place, I've blown some hurdles along the way.
Right.
I was lucky in that I have a daughter who we haven't discussed who's 2 years older.
Okay.
And so she was 2 years old when I opened the school, and
Okay.
my wife was pregnant with my son. So I was taking her once a week on, let's say Monday, one of my friends would cover class, and I would take her and we would play. But she was so young too, she hadn't formed an opinion. She put the
Yeah.
gi
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she ended up knowing, I don't know, probably half of the beginner curriculum, like how to lay bottom side. I would teach like how to block the hug. I would try to hug her and she would block it. And it was a lot of fun. We just played
Right.
standard kid Gracie kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And when my son got a little older, he just came along for the ride. So he was just going to go play with his sister. So
Yeah.
I just kind of coattailed one into the other.
Nice.
Um, Eventually she got a little older and she got bored and she wasn't into it anymore. And
Okay.
then she's gone. She stopped doing it. And maybe we would do women's classes once in a while. She's 28 now,
Right.
so she's not a child anymore, obviously. But he would keep coming, and I would just bring him by to play. Or he didn't want to go. I'd say, "Oh, I got to stop by. Hey, let's go for ice cream. Let's go for somewhere. I
Yeah.
got to stop by the school for a minute. I don't want to go to jujitsu. We're not going to do jujitsu. I just got to stop and pick something up." But once I got there, he'd play on the rope, and he would get distracted and have fun doing whatever he was doing, and that's just how it built.
Right.
Um, and I would just let him play. And of course, how the adults are, all the adults are jealous of the kids because they wish they started when they were 5 years old or
Of
four.
course. Yes.
And
Yes.
so the adults all play with the kids because if number one, it's fun.
Yes.
And number two, because it's my kid, I know there's going to be something special in the room where one, they want to help my kid because it's a way
Yes.
of maybe getting my attention
Right.
or paying me back and being reciprocal to me for what I've done for them, maybe.
Right.
So there's
Right.
a couple things going on. The other thing, which is really cool, is I know unless they're a complete jerk, and they're not because they'd be out of the school,
Right.
they're going to work with my kid with kid gloves, no
Right.
pun
Yes.
intended.
Yes. Of course.
Because, oh, if I hurt his son, Mike's going to kill me. No, Mike's not going to kill him, but that's what they're thinking. So he's in a really good environment,
Yes.
being nurtured, and adults are treating him like an adult. They're getting treated in a different way than they do even from teachers at school
Yes.
who respect them and want. The adults treat them different, and the kids feel that. So that's part of it. Jiu-jitsu had nothing to do with me keeping him in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
It had to do with him having fun and feeling good about himself and enjoying the people he was with, and me not being the nagging dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when he started to train a little bit more, I think his first seminar that he got serious was about 12 years old.
Okay.
one of our old training partners, Phil Cardella, came in and he loved it. Phil was great with the kids, and all these guys are great with kids. Like, they just, it's natural.
Right.
So he loved it. And I just made it a point of never being that dad, because I would see other parents come in
Hmm.
and ride the kid, and it's horrible. So I really tried to ignore him, knowing that he was in good hands.
Yeah.
My job was just to create the environment that he'd like to be in,
Right.
and don't contribute to the environment he didn't want to be in. I got to be dad at home. I got to be dad in the car. I
Sure.
don't want to be dad at the school, and I
Yeah.
don't want to be dad on vacation. And
Nice.
I would hear that from me. Me and my wife would say the same thing. Look, we're on vacation. Look, we don't want to be mom and dad for the week. Could you
Right.
just, yeah, can we all just have fun? Um, and so that line kind of worked a little bit. Look, I don't want to be dad.
Right.
Sometimes in the room, and what would that would mean? He would say, "Oh, I don't want to. I'm making dad want to become dad. Let me." So it was kind of like a nod to slow down, straighten up, and he just had a great time.
Yeah,
So
to
that was
me,
the trick.
yeah, I mean that the so these it's interesting to me. I mean, the things that work for kids work for adults, so that they see it differently. The community that you build between you and your son has a relationship between the community built for everybody at the gym. It sounds like all of which I'm hearing is predicated on the notion of people feeling comfortable, being able to laugh and have a good time as being kind of the central tenets that bind, that make people want to come back, keep the community healthy, keep them, uh, wanting to participate. As we were saying before we got started to record, one of the goals for me is for people to persist in their jiu-jitsu journey. And so I think a lack of what you're talking about in someone's experience would be a natural reason why they would leave, because if they're getting what you're describing, jujitsu progression, technique progression, totally not considered, that person's likely to come back. As a man who has 5 kids and my oldest is 30, I became a grandfather. I think I mentioned to you,
Congratulations.
yeah, I go by Spartacus in my grandfather world.
We all have
Um,
our families, right?
with 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 um with your son as it continued to develop, was it a bonding thing? I mean, I recognize what you're saying as you were introducing him to the community. The community was feeding your son in the sense like he was giving him experiences, taking care of him. Um, did as he became older, did it change the dynamic between you and him? Was it something that did you roll with each other in a way to instruct him, or did you leave all the instruction and all that to other people and keep, not teach him this is how to
Oh, so
improve your submissions? Yeah.
I would definitely get hands on.
Okay.
When he was little, we'd play. I mean, I play a lot with him, or I would tell him when he first started training, he had kind of rules, and there was only certain people maybe I would keep him away from, because you know who the jerks are,
Sure.
some right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
They don't even know they're just being stupid. They don't know,
Yeah.
that sometimes the strong, immature 21-year-old doesn't know that the 9-year-old doesn't know how to tap the triangle. So he runs around. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So my son at first wasn't allowed. He never learned submissions early on. So in my kids' classes, when I did kids' classes, I didn't really teach them submissions for, man, a long time, 9, 10 years old.
Right.
I really started to develop the concept for the kids. What you used to hear is uh, position before submission. I really
Right.
felt in a kid's world, they're no more than a minute from an adult intervention,
Right.
that the position was the submission.
Right.
If they could learn position to that level, and we can have a long conversation about that, how that became my adult program later. Um, he was only allowed to just roll and avoid. Once he was figured out he was having to escape or tap, that was it.
Right.
And then he learns levels of that. So through those periods, I would train with him and roll with him.
Hmm.
He's 26 now. And
Right.
so, yeah, he stuck with it all the way through. Eventually, working with the kids' classes, he started teaching kids' classes, I don't know, maybe in his late teens.
Right.
I started in that role because he's really good at that. He's much better at it than I am, actually.
Okay.
He's got a better, more educated, more evolved personality than I do.
Okay.
The great thing for him, he continued to do that till he got a job only 4 years ago, and then moved to Pittsburgh,
Right.
where he's now training with the a Pedro Sauer school. So
Okay.
he's a purple belt now, at maybe 2 degrees, I think.
Okay.
So he doesn't take degrees from them. He likes getting promoted by me when he's back here. So of course
Nice.
it's a longer road for him. He might already be a higher level purple belt by this point if he wasn't my kid.
Right.
But we got to make sure he's done the right way. So no, he's stuck with it. It's worked really well. Um, and again, because he's got a certain personality, it's he ends up teaching me. Like, so it's really funny how things go back and forth. And you can talk about, if you have children, it's amazing what your children will teach you about you.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't think people dive into that sometimes, specifically how. I mean, what have they taught you about you?
Right.
And there's some surface level stuff, but he literally has, like, there was a time when he was little before jujitsu.
Right.
He was always been a tough kid, strong,
Okay. Okay.
but very sensitive. Like if you told me you didn't like him, but he would break the light bulbs on my wife's vanity, like the
Oh,
mirror. He
sure.
would break them. This strong kid, and he
Yeah.
could rough and tumble. He was in a party one day. I watched some kid smack him across the face, and it gets your blood going.
Yeah. Right.
Comes over, he's crying, and I'm trying to antagonize him into a fight. I'm trying to go, it's okay if you hit him back. No, don't worry about it. Like
Right.
I started putting all my stuff on him. Stick up
Yeah.
for yourself. And I couldn't get him going. So I tried to fuel his fire by saying, what, didn't it make you mad? Didn't it bother you? Like, I'm really trying to instigate. And he just with this so sorrowful face went, no, it just made me sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the
How
way he
wonderful.
said it, Peter, it opened up a thing in me. I went, oh my God, that's how I used to feel.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah. Yeah.
but I could never verbalize it. He had great
Right.
vocabulary. He was so in touch with his feelings and could express it, is what
Right.
made him so sensitive. I was the opposite growing up. I'm 61 now, so I grew up in a big Irish, always ball breaking family. Like you didn't have time to feel sad.
Right. Right.
When he said it, I was like, oh my God. Like, so yeah. So there's been many instances like that where he has said stuff that I never had the words or the language for.
Right.
So he's ended up teaching me, we're on the mat. Hey, Dad, can I do this when he was 9? I go, I know. Oh, wait a second. What would you do? I don't know. Maybe wow. Well, so yeah, you just got to be open to the experience because I think when you break past age gaps and gender gaps and just look at this thing as a human experience,
Right.
we're all just having that experience. And who's to say who can't show who to what? Who's
Well,
to say Gordon Ryan can't sit in the kids' class and have the same opinion? So I think once we get used to getting beyond ourselves
yeah, it's
and creating
interesting.
that room, part of that room after that base level is a trust starts to develop. Once you're
Yes.
comfortable in the skin and you can laugh at yourself, you're not going to be ridiculed. That's the foundation now of trust.
Yes.
Where now you can start to push the boundaries a little bit. You can be more comfortable asking a question. You can just try something and lose. And that's where the evolution really comes. And that's where it starts to affect the rest of your life in a better way. So we're on like 6 different tangents here, but
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying. And I think that like in terms of how what you're saying relates to, all the hours and hours that this podcast has been in conversation with other people is this idea of trust is I feel like it's fostered in jiu-jitsu differently than other things. I think that's part of why I've decided how this will always be a part of my life until the end, frankly. And it's interesting to me just because you're describing layers of trust. I mean, there's a psychological trust. Hey, you're not going to be ridiculed. Like we're not, because you can't do something at a certain time, isn't going to be taught to you by making you feel stupid about not being able to do that. I mean, and as a teacher, as an instructor, how people feel about, you're taking them on a journey. You don't know how to do something, but just because you don't know how to do it today doesn't mean you won't know how to do it a week from now or a month from now or a year from now. And one of my friends, Professor Jason Hawkins, likes to say, people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And I think that's a wise perspective as it relates here. It, uh, you did mention about position before submission being sort of a tenet that extends everywhere. And maybe we could touch a little bit more on that and have you talk about, uh, in many ways, submission, the notion of a submission represents the ending. Like, oh, okay, I'm trying to achieve X. But I think sometimes in trying to get to the end, trying to get to Z before learning A, B, C, and D causes people to slow their learning because they're not thinking about what you just said. Like, well, what are all the things leading up to where you want to go? So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
well, so yeah, not even just the learning. So the learning is part of it, but even in a specific altercation. So
Yeah, tell
if
me
you're
about that.
doing right. So if you're doing this, let's say for self-defense, we have now is the sport version and the self-defense version, which didn't exist when I started. This was just how you fight.
Right.
And you could gamify it with the tournament, but I was learning how to fight.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think even in the fight situation, how many fights or situations are you going to be in? Like we try to talk about students' most likely scenario for a fight
Okay.
and what that looks like to culmination and to victory. So, for example, one of my students is a doctor. He works in a, let's say, an old age home, I believe it is, where patients are there. And his most likely scenario for a fight will be at work,
Right.
where a son is coming in and wants his mother released, but he's like, I can't release her. She's not stable. She's not fit. But it gets very aggressive and it gets confrontational.
Right.
And his most likely scenario for a fight, for a physical altercation, is that. So where does in his world, in his professional world as being a doctor, even the choke,
Right.
where does the choke really come in, or an arm lock, an Americana, or a foot lock, knee bar? That doesn't come in.
Right.
What his role and where most people's roles are more like compassionate law enforcement,
Right.
where you've got to take this guy and control him. First, protect yourself,
Right.
then protect yourself from them,
Hmm.
and in the greatest ideal, even protect themselves from themselves.
Right.
So while he's going to deal with this guy and the guy wants to attack, if he can simply wrap him up, take him down, and maintain a very comfortable position and be safe, well, just like the 6-year-old in school, how far is the security where he can call someone, a colleague, go get security, get this,
Right.
and it's resolved. So in his world, I don't know if submission ever comes up.
Yes.
And in the greatest position, maybe a choke, but not even. Because if you're in a position that you can apply your rear naked choke, why do you need to?
Right. Yes.
There's times where you might, sure, but this isn't like a Keanu Reeves movie. This isn't like John Wick.
Right.
We get into the martial arts. Those of us who started like for the fight, that's the dream, right? You mentioned Bruce Lee before.
Sure.
But nobody looks at these people like law enforcement.
Yes.
Like we cases up here where people have died. They're very controversial cases, right?
Hmm.
The Gardner where you got 3 cops kneeling on his chest. He's saying he can't breathe, and yeah, there's some political. Okay, all that nonsense aside,
Right.
the situation's pretty cut and dry from both sides. So you got these 3 cops who are holding down this guy who now is already cuffed and bound. His hands are tied, his feet are tied. There's no need to keep kneeling on him. But from their perspective, they might have 100 people in the street who are getting angry and getting closer and closer
Right.
because the response goes back and forth and magnifies. And before you know it, it's out of hand.
Hmm.
And the guy could have been held down by one officer at that point with one hand.
Right.
Just one hand, just neutralized. But the training is weak and the fear runs fast. And
Yes.
because the training of the positional thing is not there, even when it's possible, like these cops aren't even trained. So we're going a little bit into deep water with them.
Right.
But even those guys who are trained, because the submission is always the thing at the end. And even tournaments, the
Yes.
big break, I don't win by points. I'm always going for the submission.
Right. Right.
It's good, but if that's the only message you're telling yourself, you're programming a submission only thing, even in a real fight, when more than likely it's not necessary. And there's litigation out there. If I get in a fight on my job, I mean, imagine 55 years old, I'm going to retire in a few years. I
Right.
get in a fight on the job. It's no different than a kid. I'm fired.
Yeah.
Maybe I lose the pension. There's a lot of consequence
There's
out there.
extraordinary consequence. Yeah, without a doubt. And when I'm listening to you, I'm linking together like a variety of ideas. I am like one is internal awareness. I mean, as you talk about Declan got punched in the nose or whatever happened, like he got jostled and he was he didn't react in an instinctive way. It sounds like he took a second and was like, well, hold on, like uh, he had awareness of what was going on inside of himself before he acted, which sometimes that lack of taking a beat, I think, can be problematic. So anyway, Professor Michael, when I listen to you talk about, the conditions of a fight for this doctor and the conditions of a conflict for these law enforcement folks, some of the things that feel like they fit together from my perspective might go back even to the story about Declan having this altercation, right? And so Declan, I feel like took a beat and understood what was going on in himself rather than just react to the stimuli of the moment, right? Like I could think of as a kid, if I got punched in the nose, my thing is I'm punching somebody back in the nose. Like I'm not thinking, I'm just, my executive function of my brain isn't what's kicked in.
Right.
It's my lizard brain. And so, like for law enforcement, for people who perhaps physical altercations may be a more likely part of their life than the rest of us, it feels like you got to have internal awareness, and then situational awareness, and then the tools to bring the situation into uh, um, the best outcome rather than just an outcome that's a reflex. This feels
Mhm.
dangerous. I do something dangerous back. The executive function hasn't kicked in. I mean, is that a linkage that you feel like is accurate? And are you training those different things as you're teaching people to fight, to defend themselves as
Well, it's an interesting thing. So I think so. Declan's hardwiring was that he
right,
didn't train that. It was his hardwiring, and
right,
maybe my hardwiring as a kid it resonated. So I had some of that too, but I could also be very much the other guy, like you said, hit him right back. So my wiring was that,
right,
and I think it's very similar to if you work with children, or even adults, but children are always the good baseline because we understand children, and
right.
then if we understand children, we can start to understand ourselves because we're just people. So
Yeah,
when you talk about teaching kids discipline and temper control and all of that stuff, it's kind of stupid to tell a kid what not to feel.
yeah,
I'm
yes,
angry,
right.
so I want to hit somebody. You can't tell somebody how to feel. Right?
Yeah,
That's what you're stuck with. That's what you got.
right.
You can always work with is your response to your feeling.
Yes,
Take some time now. So just like a parent bringing a kid, I want my child very temperamental. I want him to have a better temper. I said, okay, part of it is we're going to have to trigger his temper a little bit.
right.
We're going to have to turn that fire on and
Interesting.
then teach him how to turn it off or how to deal with it. So, not to mean probably like don't unfeel it. Still going to feel pissed or whatever. But
Right,
now, how do I reconcile that? How do I deal with it? How do I move forward?
right,
And so, for the people who might have an inclination to be violent back, it starts with the conversation. First of all, do you want to not be that person?
right,
Do you want to turn into the raging Hulk? And if you're happy with that, I can't help you.
right.
You want to
Yes.
lose 20 pounds? Great. I got to lose 20 pounds, but I don't want to diet. Well, can't help you.
Yeah,
So it starts with the conversation of what do you want to be? What do you want your future self to look like? And then you start playing some armchair quarterback games, I think. I think it's a good idea. Well, let's talk about some situations where something happened that you don't like, and your response could have been different.
right,
Let's start working that from just a conversation. And I think that starts with that thing. So maybe it starts with you have a feeling, you react, you never have a reaction to your reaction. You don't feel bad about it, you don't think about it.
right.
Eventually, you start to question that reaction, which is the place where now I don't like that I'm doing this.
Yes,
Good. And so then there's a space between you deciding how you want to react to something and then you're reacting appropriately. There's a time lapse there
yes.
between there now and going, I don't want to do that. Okay, what should you have done instead? Let's play armchair quarterback now. Let's do the Bill Belichick thing and start
Yeah,
reworking what we should have done. And if you're really earnest about that, what starts to happen is the space between your feeling and the initial reaction starts to spread a little bit. You start
yeah,
having a little
yeah,
more control. And there's a moment, the magic moment is right before you're going to lash out. You catch yourself and go, oh, wait a second. I'm not doing that this time.
right.
You catch yourself at the moment. And for me, that's the pivotal moment where you go, now you're ahead of it.
Yes,
Now you're to the point that you're feeling mad, where most guys go, oh, they'll put their fist through a wall.
right,
Then they break their hand 3 times.
right,
Or they go, oh, and they start to punch the wall and they just stop. That's the beginning of the change.
yes,
And then what eventually happens, because you can't tell someone how to feel, but I have seen it myself and other people, it eventually rewinds so much that the moment from anger to punching the wall, to anger to almost punching the wall,
right.
to anger to just not making a fist anymore, you start to control it to the point that the feeling starts to unwind. And now it doesn't start to come up the same way anymore.
Yes,
You start to have a new reaction because you've trained the response differently. And all of a
yes,
sudden, you bang your head, well, you get a flat tire. And for a moment, you go, oh, come on. And it's gone.
yes,
That,
yes,
that's the phasing out. But that mostly happens, I believe, through an awareness of who you are and being honest with who you would like to be and actually working towards that
Yeah.
and
I
just
mean,
working with your reactions.
and what you're describing for me is what I that to me is the definition of maturity, because I think um, many people, that distance between action and reaction grows over. There's a natural tendency the older you get, I think, to have that distance be greater, and then it can be amplified if you're conscious of it. I mean, I think that um, if you were actively doing what you're saying, that you can achieve maturity earlier in life.
And
Whereas,
being conscious, yeah, bringing the word conscious is imperative. It's very, very important. Consciousness is what does it. And I think that even to the point you can say, oh, I have good habits and bad habits.
right,
I'll even question the concept of the word habit, that if there's good or bad, yeah, okay, a bad habit of eating too much is okay, that's bad for me.
right,
But the good habit is almost as unconscious,
yes,
which is still a level below where you'd really like to be.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I'd still like to be conscious in all my efforts and my decision making.
yes,
So if in a moment I learned some skill sets. Okay, so if someone's getting, like the kids or the adults, when you get mad, you punch the wall. The next time you get mad, before you react, if you can,
right,
try to just take 3 conscious breaths,
very good.
real diaphragmatic,
Yeah,
yogic, 3 conscious
yeah,
breaths.
yes,
Try to become still for a moment.
right,
And if you can get a little stillness, what would you like your next reaction to be?
right,
And that's the toolkit, maybe a little bit.
sure,
Like, what do I do? Okay, I punched the wall. I don't want to punch the wall. How do I stop punching the wall?
right,
Okay, do this instead. Start taking 3 breaths. Now, maybe they punch the wall 3 more times. Eventually, they're going to take 3 breaths, or
yes,
they're unhealable. Maybe they're just incurable.
right, right.
But you've
And,
got to take those
yeah,
moments.
and it's interesting in terms of the breath that shows up over so many cultures, over thousands of years as a powerful tool. I mean, this thing that is both automatic, you can breathe without thinking about it, your body will breathe, and then you can control it with the executive function. Take 3 conscious breaths, breathe with intention as a way to remove the automaticity of your action. I mean, and I find it interesting that the breath is shows up, and when I um, from a distance, obviously observe sort of Rickson talking about breathing and fighting, that those relationships were there for him too, in terms of, you know, that notion of the exhale, lowering your heart rate, giving your diaphragm to drop and giving your heart a little more space, which is an interesting metaphor in and of itself, that
Mhm.
he could find himself 20 beats behind, his heart rate be below it as the fight escalated. He was, and this is by virtue of reading about him or listening to him talk. So please don't. I recognize that it's just that type of knowledge,
No, but you got it. I mean, it's very simple in its approach.
right?
It's an interesting, like almost paradox. Like it's very simple but deep and profound.
Yes,
I mean, breath really is. That's where life sits. It's
yes,
where stillness sits. It's where consciousness sits. Like so, to breathe like automatically, like habitually, I'm just breathing without thinking about it. Yeah,
right,
it sustains my life. I'm breathing. But beyond that, it's not serving me. The
right.
unconscious breathing, yeah, it'll keep me alive. It'll fill my body with oxygen. Maybe even not properly. I mean, I could be huffing and puffing.
Yes, yes, yeah, right.
It's sustaining life because it's unconscious. Once it becomes conscious, I mean, then you're into the possibly the Wim Hof thing where
Sure,
the
sure.
meditative state and what you can control and all of that. And there's a lot of debate on all that too. But nonetheless, the breath is at the base of all this. And I think it's interesting. Even me, I came to it very late. It's interesting that how many what can you live 7 days without food,
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Even you
without
can even
water?
go 30, right? 3 days without
Right.
water, 30 days without food. But how long do you go without breathing? Yeah,
Right. And so we don't know how to do it properly, effectively.
yeah,
And so it's funny when I started picking up on the breathing with Rickson. Now I only mimicked it. I've talked to friends. I talked to Scott Burr about this, who's really has opened my eyes to the science of breathing
right.
in a very well scientific way. That makes a lot of sense, and it's helped me really understand other stuff. But when I started doing the Rickson breathing, you'd see in the beginning, 1994,
Yeah,
95,
right, right.
I just, yeah. I would hear the noise. What is that? I had no clue what it was. So I just mimicked it. And there was two important things that happened with that. Mimicking his breath and then working with Hoist one day, I was asking him about breathing. He doesn't make the same thing Rickson does, but you feel him actively breathing.
Right.
And so talking, and he just said, look, there's no trick to breathing. If you want to get better at breathing, the only trick really is to just let it out.
Right.
Nobody holds their breath out. If you
Yes. Yes.
just let it out, it'll come back in all by itself. So
Yes.
it's a very
Yes.
simple kindergarten version of I want to breathe, just exhale. All you have to do is exhale.
Right.
And so then in doing Rickson's, me mimicking Rickson's thing with Hoist's idea of exhaling,
Nice.
it really, that noise just became a mantra for me.
Yes.
So when I would breathe, they go, I would just make those noises and different patterns because if I was breathing fast and heavy, I would make it fast or slow. And it was literally just a mantra for me. And
Yes.
that's all it became. And when I started doing that, my endurance went through the roof.
Yeah,
So I don't
that's
even know it has to be that complicated.
that's interesting. So when we talk about you teaching self-defense to the person who comes in at the start, I mean, teaching self-defense is for many people who are street fighting on, is not something that's been a part of their
Right.
life, right? I mean, this is uncharted territory, generally speaking. And so the reflexive reaction, the holding your breath reaction, all of those things are a part of nearly all the, pick your percentage
Right.
of people's experience there. So do you have a framework that you begin the conversation? I mean, the police officer is going to likely come to you with experience of how they have acted in a physical conflict. And I think you might ask that person, well, if we play armchair quarterback on the last time that happens, how would you like that outcome to be different? And is that a different conversation than the person who comes in and goes, my life is quite safe and I want to be prepared for the unexpected, but I'm not exactly in a situation frequently where I feel like I could get attacked. So, do you approach those people specific to their life situations, or is there a framework that fits for both groups?
So it starts with those people, right? So the person like the cop or the law enforcement or military,
Yeah,
they're
right.
coming with data, right? They're coming with
Yes.
experience, empirical evidence. So we can have a specific conversation about that. That doesn't mean the conversation I'm going to have with the average person will
Right.
not become that law enforcement conversation as
Okay.
well. It's like the kids and it'll start from opposite ends, but eventually they're all going to get the same conversation.
Right.
The average Joe that's coming in who says self-defense is a priority. Now we just discuss like what they know self-defense to mean. Have you ever been in a fight? No.
Right.
Have you ever seen a fight? Kind of. And so we start to now just fill some data of what is a fight. We start to look at the anatomy, in a sense, of an
Yeah.
altercation.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Yeah.
Anatomy of a fight, the anatomy of aggression, and what it looks like, and then what it feels like. Everybody talks fight or flight, but everyone forgets about the freeze. It's really
Yes.
fight, flight, or freeze.
That's right. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
So it's just sometimes just the education. Now, again, this is the part with the kids. We're not having this conversation with the kids,
Right.
but we do later.
Yes.
And right now it starts here with the adults, and it's a little nervous because they come because they're afraid. There's a fearful base. I mean, most people come at a baseline of a fear.
Yes.
There's outliers, but for the most part, there's a fear-based entry into the room. And most will say, yeah, I saw the school here for the last year or so. So they wanted to come for fear, and they didn't come because of another fear.
Yes.
A lot of
Yes. Right.
going on. Right. So it's really about just kicking that can of worms over a little bit and getting to understand that. If they can say, yes, I was afraid. If I can use that word. So you were afraid to come in. No,
Yes.
no. Okay, let's be honest. And that might take a little while to chew through that. But
Right.
if I can get them to admit that they're here from a fear-based thing, which is again, good conversation. They
Right.
didn't come in this particular case because they were afraid. And now let's start opening that up a little bit and examining it.
Right.
And so if they've never seen a fight, we'll just talk about sucker punches.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and again, the kids and adults. So why does one person get sucker punched and the other person never saw it coming? Well, because one person knew they were in a fight and one
Yes.
person.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Having experienced that myself. Yeah.
Oh, now, oh, this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
And then you're so far behind the eight ball because
Yes.
by the time you're processing, like if you've seen the movie Casino,
Sure. Yeah.
with once I love the scene with De Niro in the bar with the guy in the pen.
It's
With the pen. Because yeah, here I am. I'm wondering why the guy say this guy, he's stabbing him in the neck. He didn't ask questions. He just jumps right to violence. Why is he yelling at me? So it's learning that process and understanding what it means from an analytical point of view,
Yeah,
and then to what it feels like. I
right,
mean, to feel like, yeah, when someone does this, you're gonna feel like your heart is in your stomach.
right.
Now, I've been in a fight before, so what's that feel like? Have you ever done a school play? Oh, I hate those.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Why? And we start to correlate different feelings to what a fight's going to feel like. And then again, that's the building process of understanding the anatomy from chemical reaction to feeling
Yes.
to feel like I'm scared. And then how do we deal with that? What are the steps?
And I mean, I'm wondering if this is a part of that equation too, because there's a judgment about fear that fear is categorically attached to weakness, and that if you're afraid of something, that there's a judgment that somehow or other you shouldn't be afraid of that. And it would seem to me to be nervous to enter a jiu-jitsu environment or any sort of martial art environment isn't irrational. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. There are people in there who do know what they're doing. I don't know what type of people they are. Am I going to get hurt? Like, that doesn't seem like a terribly irrational set of
That's right.
thought processes, um, which once they cross the threshold is an act of bravery in its own way, in my opinion. And so you've already demonstrated you have the seeds to confront fear, accept it, move past it. Um, and when I think of like fights that were of my youth, of being a kid, um, one thing that was useful to me later in my life was to have survived those circumstances. Not everybody does survive those circumstances. I recognize that. You can be in a fight, and someone can, in fact, kill you. But it demonstrated I could get punched and not die, which means
Right.
that, okay, I have a little less fear um, in the future. So is that a part of the conversation? Like, hey, it's okay that
Well,
you're
not
afraid.
only is it part of the conversation, we attack the conversation.
Okay, yeah, tell me
And
about that.
you use the word that I think is important when I'm separating fear. So people talk about fear as a very like it's a one size fits all. Like, well, what's fear? Is fear good or bad?
Right,
And
right.
so fear is good. Like first we have to determine is it a rational fear or an irrational fear?
Very good.
Like
Yeah.
some fears are, I'm afraid to go out. Now, that doesn't mean it's not real. So a
Yes.
child being afraid of the dark, you could say is an irrational fear. That doesn't mean you shove the kid in the room and no, it's don't be afraid. No, let's explain and educate why
Yeah.
it's irrational. Let's take the boogeyman out of your brain a little bit and figure that out. Why don't I put my hand in the fire? Because I'm afraid of getting burned? No, I know I'm going to get burned.
Right.
That's not a fear. It's a different type of fear.
Yes.
But once we understand rational and irrational, it's a great starting point to talk about them getting past the fear of coming in and really recognizing the milestone that is and how it should be applauded. And it's not so dissimilar than when they do karate and they do the kids break the boards, right?
Sure.
Now, there's no five. I mean, really, I know people that teach these classes.
Right.
The kid's punching the board. The guy is holding the board and he's squeezing the
Yeah.
board.
Right. Right. Right.
Well, like this, the board would break.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the kid learning? The kid is learning to get past what things seem insurmountable or impossible.
Right.
And they're afraid to do it, but they do it anyway. And all that stuff. That's a very powerful moment if it's done properly. Well, I don't need to have the adult break the board if I can understand and help them say, look, so you were afraid to come in. Let's look at that for a second. It's fantastic you did. So let's look at what you did to decide it was worth the risk.
Right.
What do
Very
you
good.
and so it's just a way of helping them break down what's a worthwhile fear. I mean, you might say, well, you're afraid, I don't know, you might be afraid of cats or dogs, but if your child was stuck in a room with the dog that you heard growling and barking, I'd like to think you would get past the fear of getting bitten
Yes.
and get past that. Now, maybe you couldn't, and that would be something that would be hard to live with, and that's part of the process.
Right. That's the
Then learning
freeze.
what
Yeah.
what the grind again, this is much later down the process, what the grind is like. And as we're training harder and harder, that we don't mind getting a little roughed up. We go, okay, I'm not dead. I get a
Yes.
little
Yes.
bruising, a little scratching. Now we're talking
Yeah.
purple
Yeah.
belt on the road more, but there's all the levels of this don't stop. Is how I feel.
Is it so? I mean, part of what I'm hearing as we're talking about these ideas is an incrementalism. Like you can't go from you're afraid to come in. The first year of my training, I was nervous going into every single class. I'm like, I can't, and my fear was like, connected to my job, right? Like if I get banged up in here and I can't do the work that sustains my livelihood, that's a problem for me, and that goes even to how I look. I talk to people as a part, and when someone shows up with a broken nose or a black eye, it's a different relationship to say, I need you to trust me. We're going to go down this road together. And I look like some that, do you want to
Psychopath.
trust that guy? And um,
So let me ask you, how
yes,
long, when you first went to class, there was a nervous anxiety involved with it,
yes,
right? How long did that last before you would say that that was completely dissipated?
18 months probably.
Now, how did you manage that in that 18 months?
I
You just
just didn't
crossed
did
your fingers and went in?
I just decided that two things. One is that as I went along, we talked about trust. I trusted that people would respect the tap. I also have physical limitations, like I can only lift my arms to a certain, I have things that would be normal for you to do on another person that if you do on me, you're going to break my shoulder, literally break my shoulders.
Yep.
And what happened incrementally for me is I got close to dangerous situations, tapped, and was safe again. Enough of those made me feel like, hey, I can come in to learn within the confines of what I physically am capable of, and that I'm not, and I'm still, by the way, nervous to go train outside the context of my gym, even though I've been in tournaments. And when I say tournaments, I mean local fun tournaments, but that to go travel to go to another local gym just to experience it, because I feel like, well, what happens if someone goes, hey, of course I can do this on you, and then for me it's catastrophic. But about 18 months into it, I realized I could go in, train with the people I train with, and that yes, something could happen unexpected, but that if I'm careful, they'll be careful enough with me, so then I could switch from going in nervous to going in, oh, thank goodness I get the time to do this, just excited, just taking that piece out. Um,
Right, but there doesn't sound like there was a support system on any other angle other than you, number one, taking a chance and hoping you would be okay, learning step by step that each time you didn't get hurt, you were right. So you built more confidence in
yes,
being able to protect yourself, which may or may not have been true. I mean, somebody could have just decided to be a gorilla and you go,
yes,
"Ah," again, it was your shoulder. Like,
yeah.
would you have felt better or more prepared, or you think the process would have moved along quicker and more comfortably had the support system of the school been talking about things as the progress went on? If classes seemed to step up piece by piece and people's injuries were addressed and all these other elements came into play,
Without
it's
it, yeah.
talked about, right?
On me, I wasn't in those 18 months expressing that anxiety. So, in terms of my role in not helping create that environment, and then without a doubt, reinforcing the notion that we train safety first here. It was never not expressed, but um,
Right. Well, let me just say this before I forget, because you just said it. You never said anything, and so
yeah,
why
yeah.
wouldn't you say something?
Oh, it's
Why
ego. Yeah, without a
ego?
doubt.
Maybe there's some fear involved. Maybe there's
Yes,
some
yes.
awkwardness. Maybe there's a lot. Again, I think from the guy who's running the school, like if you're doing this any length of time, you have to know this exists. And so there's a difference between an office, a company offering to say, hey, if you got some ideas of how we can improve, please let us know.
Right,
Give me a call. I'm the owner of the company.
right.
That sounds very open, but nobody calls.
Yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah.
to make that call? So
Right,
what do? They put up a suggestion box
right,
with your name. You put on a piece of paper. That's a little bit better.
right,
Then there's anonymous suggestion box.
right.
And every step removed you get, you just have to make it easier and easier. So even for me, when I'm in the room, I know people are afraid.
Right.
I know people can get hurt. I know people have egos and like the guy said, well, my back hurts, my shoulder doesn't move so far, but then I'll see you an hour later with your shoulder up here. Hey,
Yeah,
Peter,
right, right.
but it's warm. You become your own worst enemy.
Yeah,
So I really feel like the guy running the thing at the front of the room has to take these people like they're 5-year-olds.
right,
Like they
right.
just don't know enough to protect themselves. And so I
Hmm.
think it has to be shepherded in along the way and watching. There's people I won't put together. There's people I won't put with new people.
Right.
Um, I'm constantly watching and fixing that progression, like you talk about, not learning to trust, but also learning why you should trust. Like
Right.
you learn
Yeah.
to trust the partner, but you don't know why. Why? No, because they haven't hurt me yet. But if
Yes.
the why was, well, they discuss this regularly. People as a habit will ask me, hey, we're going to roll. Do you have any injuries? Well,
Right.
my
Yeah.
shoulder. Now you feel comfortable saying that's it. It's all barriers of comfort. So you were comfortable enough to do it, but you didn't get past that other barrier of, no, I still feel kind of funny. You're not
Yeah.
that comfortable in your skin yet. There's still a barrier to break down. So luckily you're not getting hurt. But I just think big picture, people stop looking and stop going deeper and deeper how we can make this experience better and more longevity driven for people.
Yes, I mean, and I am generally now much more if people don't know me, a new student, all the rest of it, I try to explain, there are consequences to certain things to me, and I'm less self-conscious about that, and I'm better, and I try to be mindful of my relationship to a new white belt to say, hey, is there anything that you want me to know about as we go and as a way, and I guess just like we began the conversation about um, play being relaxed. I mean, much of the road that you're talking about to get better of jiu-jitsu doesn't live in the highest intensity, most assertive, aggressive experiences, but it feels like the road is this incremental road of feeling safer. And when I think about that for myself, I think about my learning moving from, and I read when I heard Rickson use the term educated instincts, a lot of what I thought was, well, I learned that when somebody does something, I educate my instincts that I instantly react in a proper counter move. But where I sit right now is uh, the better that I will get in terms of a jujitsu practitioner is my executive function engaged? Am I making a decision to move in a certain way, which I can only happen when I'm relaxed? And relaxing to me is connected to the breathing. And so that breathing felt like a master key. And I don't do it well. Like I don't ex I think about it, but I know that I very quickly tense up because you know,
Then just let it out.
yeah,
In the
no,
moment,
right, right. Yeah.
just let it out. And you
Yes.
start to gain control.
And
You know,
and and I'm working on that. Yeah.
so the relaxing is an interesting thing too. I don't look at relaxing. So people would tell you relax, relax, but relaxing to me is almost like a symptom. It's not
Okay.
something you can do.
Okay.
People. Okay, it could be a personality type. Some people just tense, just
Sure.
how they do everything.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes that tension comes from nowhere other than just that's how they are. But for the
Right.
most part, the people that can't relax and then get more and more tense, that's almost like an outward manifestation or a symptom of what's going on inside.
Right.
So I don't tell people to relax. I might say, look, dude, you're very tense. You need to relax more, but I'd like to know why you can't relax. What's going on inside right now that
Yeah.
you're like, why are you scared? Are you nervous? No, I feel good. No, you don't. You feel good. You're saying that. So it's really about getting into the guts, the underpinnings of what's happening inside.
Right.
Um, it's kind of like that little story here about somebody walking around with a cup of coffee and somebody bumps into them and they're not surprised. Well, why isn't tea coming out of my cup? Well, because they're full of coffee. And so
Yeah.
someone bumps into you and you get angry. Well, it's because you're full of anger.
Right.
You're not a
Yes.
happy
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
So why am I like this? Well, because you're full of tension.
Yes.
You don't get relieved of tension by relaxing. Now,
Right.
you could try that reverse mechanism, like I did the breathing thing,
Right.
and like you're not happy, smile anyway, you'll smile on the inside.
Right. Right.
Some truth to that. You can mimic relaxing.
Right.
Maybe practice what it looks like, what it feels like. That's not going to really burrow its way all the way in.
Yeah.
It'll give you a taste of the outside, and hopefully we continue to talk why. And then so you just work on exercises. So if the person can't relax so much, I try to put them through training. Sorry about that. I try to put them through training to a level that doesn't exacerbate that thing. So
Right.
maybe on bottom positions, they get very tense.
Yeah.
Maybe in a very superior position, they're able to exhibit very calm, controlled demeanors. Okay, we'll start there.
Right.
Let's see what that feels like. Let's
Yeah.
dive into the feeling. Now let's reverse. What feels different? Okay, let's start kind of tapping those back and forth and see. Let's compare. Let's A/B comparison a little bit.
Right.
Let's get you a little hypersensitive, at least on what you're feeling.
Yes.
Then we can continue to talk about it.
Right.
But
Um,
talking and doing.
yeah. I mean, this is, for me, these are universal principles, that where the ability to pick what happens next. When you talk about the distance between stimuli and reaction lengthening and then, greater control. I mean, when I think about being a young parent, and I was a young parent, I think about my reactions to the behavior of my children, that I had
Yeah.
anxiety that, hey, I don't want you to grow up to be a certain type of person. And so my reactions were less patient and more abrupt and less loving ultimately because of my anxiety. Like, I don't want you to grow up to be a dishonest person. I see something that, looks dishonest to me, that's among the cardinal sins for me. Like, we're just not going to be that type of person. But rather than a patient, instructive approach, there was uh, that as
Yeah.
I got
Abrupt.
older, it was abrupt, and although that reaction probably lives in the nervous system of my children, of the things that, you know, I I
Oh
did
yeah.
not, that, and there are some parts of that I'm not entirely opposed to. I think about, my parents parented me in a certain way. Sometimes there was like, hey, you're out of line, and they reacted in an abrupt manner, and guess what? I was less likely to repeat
Yeah.
that behavior. And there were circumstances in which I think there was value there. But I mean, this feels universal to me as a tool that flows off the mats very well. And I like what you
Well,
said about being able to compare, like, hey, you're in a successful dynamic, and let's move from that to a less successful dynamic. Well, I'm sorry, go
and,
ahead.
and really digging in between what it feels like. So
Yeah.
the other thing, just to point out too, again, how deep do you want to dive with stuff from perspective point of view? So when you say, well, I see you becoming the type of person or exhibiting things that are the type of person I don't want to see you become. I would challenge you. I challenge me. And again, we've both been through this. My kids are older now, and you'll hear things from them. They go, I was the biggest jerk in the world, I'm sure. But
Yes.
um, you've also got to figure out part of why you're getting mad might not only be because they're doing that. Maybe you're getting upset because you feel like you're failing as a father, that he's not already doing better than
Yeah,
he's doing. Is
yes,
it your
without,
fault that he's
without a doubt.
exhibiting these things?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong that he? Oh, right. So I'm not saying you specifically. I'm just saying it's a good way to look.
No,
What am I
yeah.
doing? What am I doing? I'm thinking the thing, right? So if I'm going to react to something, I've really gotten in the habit over the years. Again, I've had a lot of fortunate situations from karate, people I've met through different arts that I've maintained. Not a lot, a few very good friendships who have taught me a lot because they were older people.
Right.
And one of them got me in the habit of saying, "Look, you have to at least examine the thing that's bothering you. Like you have to examine your reaction to it as much as you're examining it. So if your son is bothering you, or I get mad at somebody, or you piss me off,
Right. Right.
I can talk about everything you did to me, but I have to examine at least as much
Yes.
what about me is reacting to that.
Right.
Because
So,
I'm at the end of the day, I'm the center of my universe, and so it's all part of it. How deep do you want to go? And that's
so
on the mat too.
I agree. So if I'm talking to you 25 years ago, what's the difference between your understanding of what you're talking to me about now and your understanding 25 years ago?
Oh, it's much more. I mean, I think people in general. I mean, I know friends who have kids when they're 40 and 50, which I think is crazy.
Yes, yes.
Um, but I think they're much better parents.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Yet they don't have the energy to go to all the baseball games and soccer games. So, I don't think I missed one of my son's soccer games. I was
yeah,
very active with them. Aside from in some injuries now, like if I got my knees back, I would still be the guy at family parties wrestling with the kids and beating up the 9-year-old. That would
yeah,
still
yeah,
be
yeah,
me playing around.
yeah.
My limitation stops me. But back then, my patience wasn't as good. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of what I'm saying now, like I'm sure I was angry with me for what's wrong. Like I'm disappointed in me for maybe producing the thing in my kid that I'm annoyed at. Am I really annoyed at me?
Right.
Taking it out on him. He's just doing what a kid does.
And I guess
So
I
yeah,
guess my,
I think
like,
as I
behind
grew
that.
older, I started to be a little bit more. less reactionary, a little more judgmental.
And yeah, I think part of like what's under that question for me is as a jujitsu instructor 25 years ago versus today, it feels to me that what you're giving to your students also turns on this personal maturity, that the ability to incrementally move them along to have this um, these physical abilities, this way to express these ideas physically in the world, um, that you were more effective for your knowledge of yourself than you might have been earlier. And if we're to put your physical body up against your physical body to now, maybe the person wins or whatever you would want to call an altercation, your 25-year-old or 25 years back with your body versus now. However, you're you have other skills that you didn't have. I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like,
No, it does. But what I'm really pointing at is not even that, right? So I do believe, I think I could beat up or not get beat up by the 25-year-old
that's what
younger
I want to
version
talk
of me.
about. Yeah, yeah.
I could outsmart me. I could
Okay.
outlast. I think so. There's that physical attribute of the whole thing itself. But speaking more directly to the growth of the person as a person, I think what happens if you're developing with any kind of enlightenment whatsoever, compassion and less judgmental of yourself, which automatically lets you reflect that towards other people. Because I really feel like at the end of the
Yes.
day, my criticism, judgment, and lack of compassion or kindness to others was really about how I felt about myself, maybe to some degree, or at
Well,
least it's plausible. And so I becoming better at that makes you better there. And then
yes.
once
Yeah.
you recognize that's a thing, it's kind of like when people join the school, right? People join the school for a reason. They
Right.
mostly fear, learn to fight. But the reason they join is not the reason they stay for the most part.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right. The reason they stay most of it, they'll tell you, well, I made friends here, a good community.
Right.
And when you examine all those other things, if you ask them how intentional that was, they go, no, I wasn't even trying to make, I didn't come here to make friends. I
Right.
didn't come here to be more patient. I didn't come here by accident, right? Just by circumstance of the did those things happen. Imagine now if you put some intention behind it going forward.
Right.
And it's you see, well, of course, if you can come in and actually say, you know what, I haven't met these 10 guys here. Maybe I'm friendly with them too. I don't know it yet. Let me be intentional to
Yes. Yes.
access, just like when you get better at understanding and grow older, when you realize, you know what, I think I'm just more compassionate now. But that wasn't really intentional either. It just kind of happened by way of a maturity. Maybe
Yeah.
my physicality dropped, maybe my testosterone dropped. And so it just happened by accident. Well, now when I realize that, what could the next 10 years look like if I intentionally
Yes.
got more passionate and more forgiving and actually examined those things and dove down that rabbit hole? So the what 25-year ago question is great. The next best question is what can the next 25 look like?
Yeah, no, that's terrific. Yeah, as you're talking, I was going to ask about the having longevity, having that experience of being in this continual development for a long length of time. Did you have to get over being discouraged at different points because things were changing, or did you have this perspective of a mental resilience being core to your martial arts and jujitsu experience? It was just natural. Because some people could,
Yeah,
I think for myself, the reason why I feel confident about the next 25 years is disconnecting the quality of my jujitsu from just the value of persistence. Like, where do I sit in the my skill level across my training partners and the people in my school? I don't have a need to um, sit in any given place. I don't, and as I go along, it gets easier to be more self-conscious because, okay, I'm only a purple belt, but still a purple belt and is supposed to be instructing a white belt in some ways, and that's doesn't always happen, right? And rather than have that bother me, I've had to train myself to think, just keep going. Don't worry about that and trust. Um, and interestingly, well, as I mature as a person, my skills will there will be a byproduct of that as well as part of what I think I hear you saying to me. It,
Yeah, so yeah, what you started there as before. I think in well, I think in everyone's case, everyone has, you see, even on the mat and in life, people have certain things they have proclivities to, and some people learn the most complicated move like that. They watch it, they could do it, but then they
right,
struggle with the Americana,
right.
something so simple. Like some things just come easy and some things don't. That everyone's different. For me, this personality thing just came very easy.
Okay,
Easy for me. I don't want to say not to care. Like I was able to be very committed to a thing I was doing, but be unattached in a funny way to the outcome.
okay,
Now, I like getting better. I've been lucky in the sense that that came easy to me, not being so competitive. And even though I can't be competitive, but I was able to be very committed to the thing I was doing, but not attached to the outcome.
right.
And so 40 years ago, one of the senior black belts who later became one of my students, because we stayed that friendly kind of thing, said one time after I was struggling in karate, I'm having a hard time. And he's like, man, he goes, you just got to have fun. I go, what? He goes, you're trying too hard. Just have fun. And the way he said it, it just resonated. I said,
Yeah,
oh, I guess if I just have fun, the rest will happen. He goes, yeah, you're getting in your own way. Stop.
right.
And that was it. Like I didn't be beat over the head with it. And so every little lesson I got like that involved me not having to go crazier and push more, I took well.
Okay, the universe decided that a professor and I needed to take a break yesterday. So the our technical difficulties forced us to go think about how to properly finish this podcast. And so we're back at it here in day two. And so Professor Mike, when we were talking yesterday, one of the last things that you said before we were so rudely interrupted with our technical difficulties was the phrase that you had the ability to commit without attachment to the outcome. And for me, that's one of that's just a really profound point. So I was going to ask you two things. Like, would you talk a little bit about that in terms of what it means? And the other thing that you said is that it felt more native to your own personality, that it was something that was sort of a part of who you were already. So those are the two questions I wanted to start with. Like, what does that mean exactly? And then why do you think it was native to who you are?
Well, I just think it's a personality thing. I just think so like kids classes. If you've mentioned kids classes a few times, so maybe you or your audience deals with the kids a lot.
Sure.
And I think sometimes it's easy to see stuff in ourselves when we look at kids because they're just pure and
Yeah.
less, I don't know, less controlled by even themselves. They can't help who they are and express that.
Right.
And some kids, they're just natural. Some kids are tough. Some kids are sheepish and shy and quiet. Um, I don't know. I guess I was kind of just never the guy that the outcome of jujitsu or a sporting event meant to me who I was.
Right.
I was very competitive. I mean, as a kid, I played a lot of sports, baseball. So competition is not what I'm talking about, and wanting to win.
Right.
What I mean by attached is whether I win or not determined who I was and my value, or
Yeah.
it spoke to an inner thing of me that some people you see, like when they lose, they just the John McEnroe's.
Yeah.
Now that could be a version of his competitive edge while he's still not attached. I don't know. I don't know John McEnroe, but I see the expression.
Right.
But you see people who are extreme like that, and it's clearly beyond competition. And so for those people, I have to ask, so what's so important to you? What do you think you really lost? Um, and in some cases, with talking to people, if they're willing to have this conversation, I've heard some people say so much as well. It's like he took my manhood. And I'm like, whoa, that's pretty heavy. Like if you
Yeah.
can actually that deep and verbalize that, and that's what you're telling me, I see why you're upset. I can see why it bugged you so much.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
is that what you really think they did? They took your manhood? So I guess maybe I was just from the beginning, I just never felt like that. I just felt like the thing I was doing had nothing to do with who I was or me.
Right.
And it's not even, I can't even take credit, like, oh, look how wonderful I am. It's just, it's who it was. Just like I had a bad temper too.
Right.
I don't really take credit for that. Well, I got a bad temper. Like, no, I had a bad temper. I had a good disposition the other way.
Right.
And so I think when we see it in the kids, it's kind of easy to dissect a little bit, and maybe then not to judge these kids, or sometimes it becomes self-reflective to be able to look at someone else and not judge, but I guess kind of just I'm losing the word. Just dissect who they are a little bit
Right.
as a study, and
Yeah.
then at the end turn it back onto you. It's okay. How am I like that?
And,
Like I told you the story with Declan, right? Declan had that feeling of feeling
yes.
sad.
Right.
I couldn't help it. And that just spoke to me. But hadn't it spoke to me, I could have tried to think more about what he said and what he felt, and then it might have woke up in me to go, you know what? I kind of feel the same way. And now we have something to work with a little, right?
Right. And one of the things that's important to me in this notion of commitment without attachment to the outcome is, and maybe you can, you know, give me your thoughts about it, is sometimes I think when people hear that, um, that it's either they fear it's a permission not to try as hard, or they think people that say that somehow or other are less driven. And what I think you've described to me when you put it in the context of playing baseball, or, pick your competitive situation, that you went as hard as you could go, but whatever happened didn't necessarily define something. And I think that's hard for people, right? To value something highly, um, to go after it hard, and then to realize, well, the outcome, it's sort of like when someone tells you to do your best, right? Like, well, what does that mean exactly? And that becomes a trap in some ways. Like, well, if I don't achieve what I set out to achieve, does that mean I was not capable of it, or I didn't try hard enough? Or, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that get wrapped up into that. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about not being attached to the outcome isn't a way of giving you permission not to go as hard, or if you hear that from somebody else, that you perceive them as somehow or being less um, wanting to achieve whatever they're setting out to achieve. Does that make sense,
No,
that question?
no, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a really interesting point. And we'll see it expressed sometimes. You'll see people sometimes go to compete. Back when you could, I think competition's tougher now because they're so strict and stringent on the rules and how you weigh in.
Yeah.
But it used to be, you might see somebody compete at a higher bracket or a higher weight class, and there's two reasons they do it. I mean, I used to do it when I first started training in 1994
Right.
because I didn't know nobody to train with. So I would just do tournaments, and I would want to go with the tougher guys because that was my only exposure to the tougher guys.
Right.
I had Henzo Gracie down in the city. Wasn't here. He had been, I think, deported at the time. Frank Kukok there was nobody to train with. Maxwell was the closest place in Philadelphia.
Right.
So I went to tournaments when they started. Kip Collar started not Grapples Quest. That was Brian Simmons, I think, and Kip Collar had one. So I would enter them at a higher level, either even I went to black belt competitions as a blue belt because it was no
Wow.
gi, and I
Yeah.
wanted to just feel what these guys felt like.
Yeah.
Get beat up, that didn't matter. Then there's the version of the people who went to competition and do that because they go, well, what do I got to lose?
Right.
They're hiding behind that. They're
Right.
putting something else on the line and go, well, I was expected to lose. So that's what you're talking about, I think.
Hmm.
What the thing is an excuse to hide a little. Or
Yes.
they can say, well, it didn't mean that much anyway. No, when I say committed without attachment, it means a lot for me to win. I'm still
Right.
very competitive, but no one's taking my manhood.
Yes.
There's nothing inside that's been taken from me that I already can't give up. If I want to give up my manhood, if you want to, whatever you want to call that, I don't know what that even means. To tell the truth, if I want to give up my manhood, that's mine to give up. But no one's taking that from me. And
Yes.
so the people that hide behind that or are afraid of it use as an excuse to, if I lose, I don't care. To the people who want to point from the outside in and say, well, you're just hiding behind something. Now, if that's your friend you're talking to and you try to dig deeper and get him to a better place, that's one thing. Otherwise, I don't know. Your judgment's your own. None of my business what someone else is doing.
Right.
If I think someone's hiding behind it, I've got no conversation to have with them, unless me and you are friends and we're training. And I think you're doing it because I'm concerned about you and where your position is for personal growth, or you bring it up. Well, now we can talk about your intention and what you want to do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, people looking at me, if someone says, oh, you're just hiding behind that. Well, if you criticize me because you want to know more, let's phrase the statement differently,
Right.
and we'll help you with that. Are you curious, or are you just judging me? I'm judging you. Whatever, goodbye. I
Yeah.
don't care.
And I
Um,
guess like the utility of that, I mean, the reason why I think that's so important is to me that's connected to the idea of resilience. Like if you can go hard at something, do your best, strive with everything you have for whatever, right? Jiu-Jitsu life would pick your target. That not every time you aim the bow back and shoot the arrow does it hit the target, but there's always another chance to take another shot. Um, and I see when you lack that resiliency, you can fall into despair, where the lack of achievement is somehow attached to, as you say, the value of the person. I mean, pick your metaphor, man, or whatever, right? The value of how you perceive yourself rather than you just didn't achieve the outcome. So for me in jiu-jitsu, my progress, I have to just measure in time and effort and rather than how good am I per se at what I'm supposed to be learning. And then in life, to me, it plays out lots of times because I've taken lots of chances and most of them have not worked out if we're to put a
right.
percent, right? Like I've tried hard at many, many things. I've had some successes, but the proportion of success to failure is certainly, I've failed at more things than I've succeeded in if I'm to,
If you're really challenging yourself, that's what's supposed to happen, I think.
yeah, I agree.
If you're more successful than not, well, are you really challenging yourself or pushing yourself?
Right.
And that may be, look, I want to cross the street successfully. I don't want to hit by a car.
Right, right.
I want to be successful all the time when I do that. So no, I'm not going to challenge myself. I'm not going to close my eyes. I'm not going to look the other way. What challenge it? I want to succeed. In the specifics of trying to push yourself and grow, or some
Yes,
people want to open a business, or I know people who have been very successful that have been bankrupt 4 or 5 times, and like their wife never knew.
right.
Now, but they want to keep pushing forward. They don't just quit. Like, I mean, Einstein was oh no, was I don't know. There's some guy, the Edison had that
Yeah,
statement about
right.
the light. How many times he failed, and
Sure,
every time he failed, he was one step closer to success.
for
It's
sure.
just perspective, right? So I think failure is great. If you fail forward, as we've heard people talk about,
Right,
that's the goal. But if
right,
you're going to fail and crumble, there was a time when Helsan, I've trained under Helsan from the beginning, Helsan Gracie.
right,
Um, he was in Hawaii when I started training in '94. So he would come to visit when I opened the school in '99. And he would come anytime I asked, he'd come to a seminar, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a year. And there was a time when I started to compete. Maybe it was purple belt when I started to get more like, you know what? I got to show him what I can do. We went to the Arnold's. It was a big event he had with Schwarzenegger,
right,
maybe 2000, 2001. And I really tried. Like I committed to this tournament like I never had before. I trained for it. I went outside my box. Normally, I wouldn't say I didn't care, but I took it very casual. Like as
right,
if to say, well, if I get in a fight now, I didn't get a chance to prepare for it. Let me enter the tournament the same way.
right.
I wouldn't worry about
Yes,
all
right.
the
Yes, yes, right.
that was the tournament for me. Tournament for me was putting this stuff in the best real life scenario I could,
Yes,
conditions I would probably be in, which might not be a lot of sleep. I wouldn't sleep. Sometimes I'd sleep 3 hours the night before a tournament. Like all these fun games I play.
right,
Anyway, the one time when Helson was there, he was going to be there. I knew he was going to be there. I wasn't going for a belt, but I wanted to impress him.
right,
And I trained for it. And I went out and I lost, but I was out of I just lost bad. I didn't submit, but I lost by points. I was really embarrassed. There's a photo of him and me. He's behind me, and I'm in a chair slumped over, like, oh, I'm kind of pissed and disappointed,
right.
but it wasn't a competitive thing. See, it was different. This was the attached part that started to grab me a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. Tell me about
And
that. Yeah,
he's over me in the back, and he just says, like, almost like this tough love. He wasn't trying to make me feel better. He goes, Mike, this is how you're going to react. You can't compete.
yeah,
It's not that important. You came, you did this, but man, if this is how you're going to react, it's not for you.
right.
And I went, what? And it freed me. I said, you know what? It was great to hear. It was like he was actually mentoring me.
Yes,
It went in a great way. And the one time I started to put my foot in that puddle of let's
right,
commit, man, he took the chains off very quickly. And so it was real easy for me to go, say, I'm done. I'm never doing that again. Even if I train hard, I'm not going to sulk and be all, you lose, you lose.
right, right, right.
No big deal.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, maybe one of the things that I was curious about because there's not many people in the world that have the length of time you have in jiu-jitsu and the and what I mean by that is uh, there's not many perspectives that would match yours in terms of how things may have changed from 1994 to today.
Okay.
And I'm curious about what's that look like to you? I mean, we talk a lot about sport and self-defense as like common ways of viewing what's going on right now. Like, is that are there healthy or unhealthy kind of directions as it relates to sport versus self-defense? Is it tomato tomato? Is it just, what's appropriate for the athlete or the person or but um but maybe you could talk a little bit about what you see as the either the evolution or however you might want to describe it from 1994 to today.
Um, yeah, it's funny. You get a lot of criticism now with what Rickson will call the de-evolution of the martial art and sport focus. And I mean, I personally have no problem with it. I think it's great.
Hmm.
Everyone gets to do what they want to do.
Right.
What I don't like, and I guess I'll criticize this from some schools I hear. When I have people come to my school, I really teach what I feel like is the original jujitsu, where you didn't talk about sport and self-defense. That wasn't a conversation.
Right.
I saw jujitsu as this is just how we fight.
Right.
So I was doing karate. That's why I got interested in it. I never did a karate tournament. My instructor wasn't behind it. He felt karate was fighting, self-defense. And again, not even to say self-defense, which is a weird word to me. It's how you fought.
Right.
Like, that's a fight. If I'm going to get in a fight, this is it. If my fight is from a self-defense perspective, fine. If I'm law enforcement, and it's about conflict aggression and neutralization and all of that. So that conversation never happened in my early days. And everything Helsan taught, even though Helsan, ironically, is like these self-defense guy. Like, it used to be, we heard like all these little metaphors and stuff coming up, trying to understand what jujitsu was
Hmm.
and what different brothers offered. And would say stuff like, Hoyler, if you were going to fight in a tournament, Hoyler was the last guy you wanted to run to. He was the tournament guy,
Okay.
great at it. If you were going to do Vale Tudo or MMA, Rickson was the last guy you wanted to run into.
Right.
That was who he was. But if you had to get in a fight in the street, in the parking lot, in a dark spot behind the bar, Helsan was the last guy you wanted. So even though Helsan, everything he taught was always street capable. Like, I don't know a thing to do in jujitsu from Helsan that wouldn't work perfect in the street with limited liability to me.
Right. Okay.
It's synonymous. Even though that was true up until the time, and I'm going back a few years ago now,
Yeah.
he had 4 tournament champions than all of his brothers combined. So it's
Helson.
not like you're foregoing one for the other.
Okay.
Like, there was no need for that. So my biggest, I guess, criticism I could say that I wouldn't like if it was in my world is that it seems like when you go to a school, you have to pick that now. They're not the same thing anymore. Now, I'm not
Okay.
judging what they do because that's like, knock yourself out. Mendez
Right.
brothers, phenomenal jujitsu, phenomenal ways of moving. My son loves all that stuff much more than I do. Have fun with it.
Right.
So I don't like the fact that when you go to a school sometime, people come to me and they're shopping schools and they talk about self-defense and they start to explain the difference. They
Right.
say, oh, no, the other schools do that too. Now, I know they don't. I mean,
Right.
they're my
Right.
neighbor. I said, what do you mean? Do you ask them this? Well, they said, yeah, in a real fight, you just flip the switch. Flip the switch.
Yeah. Right.
You get Jimmy Barambolo and all this upside down X card again.
Yes.
All great, but don't just say flip the switch. That's unfair to the student.
Yes.
You're being a little bit disingenuous now. You're lying to them.
Yes.
Not just flip the switch. So the biggest change I see is that. And for the people who love sport, it's great. It's a great change for some people. I just don't personally like it. And if I find friends that are going for schools and shopping, ask them my opinion, this is the conversation I go through. What do you want out of it? What's your goal? I
Right.
don't tell them what the goal should be.
Right. Right.
If I wanted to learn self-defense, why not just as soon go play basketball and get in great shape?
Right.
Because an athlete is a good fighter in general. Like, but it doesn't make sense. And sport jujitsu can sometimes be, excuse me, as disconnected depending how they're training.
Yeah. That's
To the
interesting.
world of self-defense, if that's important to you. So
Is
that's the difference, I say.
Yeah, and I'm I mean, one thing you've been a part of, been able to observe is this was a pretty esoteric small thing in 1994, and now it's much, much larger. And I mean, when something grows like that, it is inevitable that there'll be permutations. It can't stay on a single rail. to grow the way that it's
Well,
grown.
you don't want it to. I
Yeah,
don't think you want it to. I think
yeah,
these permutations are, again, great as long as they're open and honest,
right,
and they're as educational before you walk in the door as when you come into their door.
right,
But otherwise, I think they're phenomenal.
yeah,
I think, look, and even for people, it's fine. I talked to Chris Howder about this a lot.
hmm
And we have a same opinion, which is always good when you find someone who has the same opinion as you, because not that it makes you feel good, but you validate number one, because Howard is a legend.
yeah,
And you start to see different versions of my own. Like, oh, I didn't think of it like that or like this.
right,
And it's funny that people will just now they'll knock the self-defense or they'll knock the tournament, the competition thing. The one thing we can really say, I can say definitive. If I take a guy who does self-defense jujitsu, only self-defense jujitsu, and I'll say in the way I typically see it done these days, because now it's been made a little softer, a
hmm
little bit more available for everybody, and that's phenomenal.
right,
Um, that more people are getting into the door, but very often those people never up the level.
okay,
So what happens is when my blue belt in 1999 was a tough as nails guy, I've done
right,
the same thing. I throttled things down because I chased a lot of people out that really needed me, right? The
yes,
people we needed the most, I probably scared them away.
yeah,
Like guys who were able to stay, they didn't really need me, not for self-defense. So when we throttle things down, my blue belts now aren't the same as the blue belts that used to be,
yeah,
but my purple belts are.
okay,
So I didn't just drop the standard, like kind of, and make it easy and whitewash it all and then leave it there. No, we changed. So the purple belt became the new guy that was okay. Now you're getting some grit. Now you've passed the test to stay longer. You want to go a little further. Now the grit happens. So the self-defense school I'm talking about is the one that doesn't do that. They
yeah,
start lower bar and they let all the students stay low bar and they know the movements and it starts to look a little kata like in karate.
hmm
They don't really do high stress and all that stuff. For me to take that guy and turn him into not even a potential world champion, but
right,
to turn him into a competitive competitor
right,
is a lot more work than if I took the run of the mill competition school guy and taught him the self-defense. That guy will learn heads and tails and be effective with the self-defense quicker and
okay,
grow in jiu-jitsu from sport to self-defense all inclusive
okay.
much quicker, better, and more effectively than the self-defense only guy can grow into the sport world and become complete in both worlds there. And the reason for that is
Yeah,
the
yeah. Tell
approach.
me, yeah,
Well, they take a serious approach. They're doing warm-ups.
okay,
They're doing all this stuff that's in part of competition. In fact, they're doing the stuff that martial arts are supposed to do in the beginning.
yeah,
Warm-ups, they're conditioning, their health, they're eating a little bit better. Look, even if they're eating sloppy and at 40 pounds overweight, they're rolling, lots of rolls.
yeah,
They're in the mix, they're in the grind. You removing that grind is what turns this metal into steel, the
right,
forging.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Like you need that.
yeah.
Now the self-defense people will kind of criticize that and it's also, yeah, but okay, maybe you don't like what they're doing, but the context by which they're doing it, you should be doing too.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, I've had a lot of conversations now over the last number of years on the podcast, and the theme of the community that comes out of it, and the importance to the individual, and the importance to the type of community that gets developed around jiu-jitsu is a lot of what we've talked about over the years here. And it is the soaking in of jiu-jitsu across other parts of people's lives that happens, I think, the most profoundly. So the one thing about what you described, that the sport person thinking about their diet and more immersing them in, regardless of the effectiveness of that as self-defense work, it's a more of an incorporation of it into their entire lives is what I hear often. I don't know. So
Right.
it's interesting to me. So it almost feels as though when you say it's more work to take someone who's purely training for self-defense and move them into the sport world, which I think is what you said, it's that the breaking down the boundaries between, we're not just training for the fight. We're not just training for when somebody attacks us in the street or whatever, I don't know, pick your
Yeah.
metaphor, but instead we're developing a lifestyle. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Um,
without a doubt. And how they manage that thing too. So there's a lot that comes along with that. Like we talked about before, like so the guys who start to just dive into this more and more, you start to learn that that's where the humility comes.
yeah.
Like when Helsan will talk about like when he loves to see the tough guy come into the gym. Now, he loves to see the tough guy come in. Could be a wrestler, a high school wrestler, a college wrestler, just a tough guy.
Right.
He loves the transformation process when that guy comes in. And back in the old days, when I started, those guys did not fare very well in jiu-jitsu because the jiu-jitsu guys trained as hard or harder. They were like, the psychos.
Yeah,
They're all kind of a little nuts. No, it's all we thought about. And he would watch the tough guy come in and try to rough up people and slowly get broken down
Yeah.
and slowly get humbled and slowly make the transformation. And it might be 6 months or a year or whatever, but eventually they become kind of a different person because the humility
Yes.
often is beaten into you.
Yeah.
And if you're in a good community of people, your manhood's not taken. No one's trying to do that.
Right. Right.
We're just here training to make a bad gladiator reference, right? That's what we're doing. We're fighting with wooden swords and we're fighting hard and we're hitting each other, but it's all in great a loving competitive spirit.
Yeah.
All trying to get better. He loves to see that transformation of the tough guy come in and now become a tougher guy, but a better version of that tough guy.
Yeah. I love that. One of the early conversations with Pedro Sauer, and he had this phrase that he used that has stayed with me. And he's like, jiu-jitsu has a tendency to squash out like the bad characteristics of a person. And, it was early on in the podcast history and that stayed with me. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed is that, like yourself, people that really don't know me, but maybe someone says, hey, he's worth spending an hour with or whatever. Been very, very gracious across the board. Like it's been a common trait among folks that have dedicated so much of who they are to jiu-jitsu, which I find interesting. One of the things that I'm curious about along this conversation of sport and self-defense and so on is, should we be thinking about preserving a certain way of doing jiu-jitsu as the most important thing, or is the Gracie, is it evolving all the time and we should be thinking about how to refine it? Because it feels almost like there could be tension between, we want to preserve jiu-jitsu the way that it was done with Elio, Rickson, pick your, in Mount Olympus, whoever you might want to say,
Yeah.
or do you
Yeah.
think of it as growing into something different? And I don't, what's your perspective on that?
I'm kind of a believer of it. If it's not growing, it's dying.
Okay.
You're either growing or dying. There's
Yeah.
no stagnant. How you define growth is a different thing.
Right.
And how you define, I guess paying homage, which I'm a big fan of. When I came from karate and into jujitsu, it was really cool that you didn't do the bowing, and Helsan was very formal. I could wear whatever belt I wanted. I was like, I forgot my white belt in my first seminar. What do you mean? Wear your belt. Like, doesn't matter what belt you wear. Doesn't care.
Right.
I love the informalness of that. And then ironically, the informalness was the very thing I started to hate about it. Because I realized everyone coming into the room, unlike karate, martial arts types go into a karate room, or
Right.
nerd, guys who don't fight a lot, but they're part of a culture. They're willing to be part of a culture. The jiu-jitsu room gets really kind of two big groups of people: is the martial artist or the athlete.
Yeah.
And the athlete doesn't respond the same way. And that's where this all started with now. If you don't roll with every student all the time, and you're not good, or all these things fell. So when Elio passed, I started, I said, we got to go take a step back a little bit. So I started introducing, we start the class off, we bow to Elio, we bow to the forefathers,
Right.
we bow to each other, and then we can, that's it. No more bow. You don't bow on and off the mat. But I wanted to introduce just a little bit of culture and formalness to say, look, we're in a different space here. When the wrestler is made to bow, we're bowing. We're not in a wrestling room anymore. We're in a different culture.
Right.
And the gis, I love the idea of Elio's white gi concept, where I can see it's clean, I can see it's washed.
Right.
But I love the personal expression too. And I love the idea of schools having their own team thing. But I don't like, now I'm padlocked to your sales counter. I can't buy the cool part.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't, you send me a shirt, I can't wear it to the school because it's not their brand.
Right.
I don't like that either.
Yeah.
So I do my first class for the white belts. When you're a white belt, white gi only.
Right.
And you have to wear a school or team rash guard. So they came in with your t-shirt. You're on the team. You're on the jiu-jitsu team. That's that big team for me.
Right.
Not just race or a plain shirt. just for hygienics.
Yes.
Once they put the blue belt, they can wear any color they gi without, being disrespectful. I don't want to see all sorts of patches. Like I used to have guys come in with South Park patches on,
Yeah. Yeah.
disturbing things. It was like what the disturbed music bands. Like, band, what are you doing? This isn't a
Right.
jean. Like it denigrated too much.
I agree.
So I felt like there was an important like injection needed of some formalness of that to maintain that thing.
Yes.
I do not believe in being stuck in those times. But here are the 10 commandments. Here are the tablets of the moves we do.
Right. Right.
Those moves were great at the time. And Elio and Carlos and that whole group made wonderful innovations.
Yes.
They didn't invent anything. Like we see all the judo books now. Like there's that big argument, judo is jujitsu. I don't even care. You know what? It's fun.
Yeah.
But Elio and that clan, as well as his sons, made incredible strides of innovation. For me to think they've discovered the end of the known universe with jujitsu would
Yeah.
be stupid.
Yes. Yes.
Like, what, you could do it and I can't? And so the best of those guys, Helsan and Rickson in particular, those two in particular, I mean, not just Rickson,
Right.
those two in particular really embrace it. I've never had Helsan. He's always open to me from when I'm a blue belt. Helsan, you're doing this, but I'm not flexible like you. I'm making this adjustment here. And sometimes he'd say, do it up, no good. I'm going to catch your wrist. I'm going to catch your foot.
Right.
No good. Other times you go, do it again. Do it again. Oh, God bless. God bless it.
Very
He gives
nice.
approval.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Rickson was the same way. Rickson still is the same way. We could sit in the room with him now.
Right.
Spent a lot of time with him over the last 10 years. And it's particularly effective if the few of us that train there a lot with him, you've talked to, I think, Chris Burns and Scott
Sure.
Barr.
Yeah.
We can sit there sometimes and very respectfully. There's a way to do this with him. I have a very different relationship with Helsan. Helsan will like, he's my uncle. I mean,
Okay.
I know him. He watched my kids raise everything. Rickson is, I step a little bit more
Right.
carefully. Rickson, I don't think this move is going to work on me if I'm really fighting back. What do you mean? I don't think it's going to work. I feel like if I'm just strong and not even a jujitsu guy, like the way you watch him debunk self-defense techniques. Okay, I'm going to resist now, but I'm not going to do anything technical.
Right.
Okay, Rickson, I'm going to resist now, but I'm not going to do anything technical. The headlock against the wall, you're not taking me down. I'm athletic enough, and I haven't. And then sometimes we'll sit there. We've sat there for an hour plus, just hammering it out, trying to find something that kind of, if it works,
Yeah.
it works. If it doesn't, we'll figure this out. So they still evolve.
Yes. Okay.
We all should be evolving, is the point, I guess.
And that,
Don't answer the short question.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, luckily enough, nobody cares about my opinion, so I'm very safe to say whatever I want to say, and for me, looking at something that had a very small footprint in the early 90s to something that has a very growing footprint now in terms of it, for me can only be good. Because out of that there are some prodigies out there that are either exist today or will exist in
Absolutely.
that will show us things that are not in our imagination. Because as you say, it's unlikely that the universe is closed off. Like what's the most
Right.
effective, right? And so the more energy that's in the the jiu-jitsu world or whatever, I think is a net positive. And I say that with all due respect to the notion of, hey, we need to preserve. There are things that need to be preserved and not forgotten. I feel like the net of all of the people in the world that are finding this that wouldn't have otherwise found it is a good thing. And sometimes I wonder what what are the possibilities? Like as you said, when you started, it was like, this is just about fighting. It's sort of like Ray Charles for me in music. Someone asked him like, well, do you like country music? He's like, I like music, like it's,
There you go.
and so I think the early intentions of the MMA world were a little bit along those lines. Like, well, are you a boxer? Are you this or that? And then it's evolved. Well, I'm a fighter and I use whatever I need in the moment to
That's right.
fight, and ultimately, I feel like for jiu-jitsu, it's the same type of thing. Like
And as far as the legacy and all that, like, you could talk like Pedro Valente, the proper pronunciation, right? Pedro Valente. Spending time with him over the years, I met him, man, years ago on a Gracie cruise, which was really cool. And we stayed in touch over the years. I visited him. He's a great example of what the melting of these two things are together, I think.
Right. Okay.
Because you to go to his school, like he really does. It's a strange thing. When he's in the room teaching, he did a seminar, Robin Giesler, one of Helsan's guys in Ohio, hosted a big weekend seminar that Pedro was at. And I'm telling you, Peter, when Pedro was teaching and honoring Elio and talking about what it's like Elio is in the room.
Yeah.
He invokes his spirit in such an amazing, beautiful way, but he's not stuck in the dark ages. Pedro's evolved, shown different things, but he does honor what Elio's done. He'll explain to you what Elio did and why he's changed it. So he brings the information along.
Yes.
And I think that's really important. Just like I think a lot of us, we share techniques. I'm going to show techniques I've learned, but I'm always going to tell you who I learned them from, because I think that's part of the information packet.
I
This
agree.
is from Helsan, this is from Rickson. I think it informs you. It's not about me bragging who I learned it from.
No, I get it.
It informs the information you take. And I think Pedro does an amazing job of that in such great high honor of Elio. And I think the growth process, if this version is important to you, has to go through those filters a little bit.
Yes.
Like,
I agree.
So if, like when I talk to Rickson, I'll say, Rickson, so you're doing this thing now. He's very aggressive. I'm shocked how aggressive Rickson is in a fight. Much different than Helsan even. Helsan is very traditional Elio Gracie.
Okay.
The 100% defense. Rickson's very aggressive. Well, I like my defense with a little bit of spice. This wasn't your dad. Well, my dad was weaker. I'm stronger. I go, yeah, but now you're talking about strength. This sounds a little
Right.
a fine line. So I just asked him one day, so, okay, if you think your father was you, or your father lived another 100 years, 90 years, whatever, do you think his jiu-jitsu would have evolved to what you're doing? He's, yeah, very quite possibly, yes.
Okay.
Now, if that's what Rickson really feels, well, I think he's doing the right thing for Rickson.
Right.
If Helsan says, no, Rickson's wrong, this is what my daddy would do now,
Right.
well, then he's right too. You can both be right, because it's both your interpretation.
Yes.
So I'm not teaching you Helsan Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Rickson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I'm teaching you my interpretation of it.
Yes.
I have to own that.
Right. And to me, like these notions of truth and honesty, like truth and honesty, I think is arrived at through a distillation over time. Like ideas, almost like water, right? Like water lands on the surface, has to go through the earth and be, all the impurities pulled out of it. By the time it hits the well, it's now been purified. And that has to happen over time. And so what I love about when I listen to like Chris Burns' passion about preserving Rickson Gracie and all of the preservation themes within the community, what I love about that is that we don't want to lose any of the wisdom that was gained over time. And that has to be actively, I think, preserved. I think the people that are new to it could think, they're reinventing the wheel because they're the first ones to think they found whatever, as opposed to, right. And in terms of understanding what you said, I'm going to give you this move, and here's the provenance of the move. I learned it here. This is why. This is who. And for me, when you're talking about the bowing, it's connected to this idea, because understanding how things came about and then creating a, lack of a better term, sort of sacred type space to say, in this time when we're doing these things, it's different than the other time. Like to me, the bow is like, now we're doing this, and this is different than what you were doing 10 minutes ago. We're in like we're entering into this space and time to do these things. And then at the end to say, okay, now this is concluded. Now we go back to, I'm no longer Catholic, but I was raised Catholic, and I maybe you're similar. And so the liturgical calendar, I think, is, if you went through your confirmation, right, the liturgical calendar has Advent is different than Easter, is different than ordinary time, right? So like when we bow in, it's Advent, we bow out, it's ordinary time. So, but I don't know. I think it's, for me, all these tensions are good, preservation, innovation, people who are going to find stuff by accident because they just happen to be gifted.
It's good for like, if you look at innovation, where it's going forward, like where it's going, what you're really looking at is who is the next student. I mean, that's the specific point in time we're talking about.
Right.
When you talk about where is the evolution going, and we're looking at the forward progression of things.
Right.
The specific point in time you're talking about in that thing, what that looks like in reality is, what's the next guy that walks through my door? That's the next step. That's the first step of the thing we're talking about.
Yes.
And what's the experience now?
Yeah.
So his experience is going to be a lot different than mine or yours.
Yes.
And so just like, for example, me, Chris, and Scott, well, I can't even tell. We've probably spent over the last 10 or 11 years, it's now hundreds of hours of private time with Hicks.
Yes.
And we each have a different experience.
Right.
And Scott has been they have both been very instrumental in helping me find this version of this journey for me.
Okay.
They have not been instrumental in teaching me Hickson's jiu-jitsu.
Right.
They have been instrumental in helping me find my interpretation of it.
Yes. Yes.
Have a different interpretation. Even when I go, oh, I got it. Me and Scott might still disagree on some small slight of it, or maybe a big expanse, or me and Chris. Maybe I don't like the way Chris is doing his thing, or he doesn't like how I'm selling mine, or whatever.
Right. Right.
At the end of the day, first of all, not everyone can be my customer.
Right.
Right. I can't be the teacher for everybody.
Right.
Even if I had access and I could make a million of me.
Right.
No, some people don't hear my voice.
Right.
Some people need Scott. Some people need Chris. They need you. They need this podcast. So everybody needs their version of what works for them. And so
Yeah.
who's the best instructor? The answer is who's the best instructor for you?
Right. Right. Right.
No different than, well, what's the best martial art? Like
Mhm.
someone's coming to me and doesn't understand jujitsu. I'm not going to tell them the best self-defense art is jujitsu.
Right.
I'm going
Right.
to find
Right.
out who they are and what they want to do. Because really the best martial art for self-defense is the one you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it's jujitsu.
Right.
But if you're
Yes.
going to do it because you feel too, I don't like it. I really like all the kicking. I grew up on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Sure.
If
Sure.
that floats your boat, then that's the best one for you. Diet plans. What diet's the best? The one you're going to do.
Right. Right.
What
Right.
workout plan's the best? So it stays to that thinking. That's all. And now, at the end of the day, am I really here to profess and teach jujitsu? Maybe I could be narrow-minded. But if I can help somebody find a school in the area, and I'll do this plenty of times. I'll get on the phone and call the schools, competition schools, like
Sure.
students of mine who open their own school.
Yeah.
I'll help the guy find the right school because the idea is not to get him in my place. It's
Yes.
to get him into this lifestyle if I think it's so important.
Yes.
To be a little evangelical in a sense.
Yes.
But I don't care about Catholic, Jew, product. I don't care about that.
Right.
Just get into a practice of
Yes.
sorts.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
that's
yeah, I mean, in the beginning, when we talked of this conversation, we talked a lot about intention, so your intention is to serve these people in the way that matches their own intention. And if that doesn't fit with you, you still want to bring into the world this good thing of, hey, let's align you with something that's better for you, because the better version that person brings out into the world, the better the world is, right? I mean,
I'm still serving them. So I'm still doing the thing I'm supposed to want to
yeah,
do.
right.
So instead of serving them and me,
Yes.
let's move to me for a second.
Right. Yeah.
So it's still of the purity of serving the person and helping them.
Yeah. Well, you're in this particular podcast, you're cursed with the fact that I could talk to you for about 200 more.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah,
Here.
and for those of you who are unfamiliar, behind Professor is the Long Island Sound, and I was born on Long Island, so he's shown me this. It's bringing me back. Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. It's a beautiful
triple ends of Long Island.
Yeah. Oh my God, just gorgeous.
Way over there in Manhattan somewhere. So
That's right, this city.
There's the nickel talk.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Well, I mean, we touched a little bit on longevity we started the podcast years ago. When I started it, it was to keep people on the mats, and that's an important thing that I want people to take away. This podcast is designed to continue to keep them thinking about it in between training sessions and to encourage them. I do have a special interest in those of us who start later in life, of encouraging those people. So to the person who's listening, who's 55 and is wondering, can I do this or not? Do you have anything you might say to that person about what it is? How do I remove the boundary?
Without a doubt, they can do it. This is not rocket science. What I would suggest, though, if you're shopping schools is, especially if you're listening to this podcast, I mean, anybody on this podcast or in the audience, I think they're accessible people. I mean, I'm not sure how this works. You're going to have comments popping up here, maybe. If people can be tagged. I mean, I can't imagine if you tag me with a question, or Scott Burr or anybody else you've had in this thing. If I'm online doing something, I'm happy to engage. Like, I'd much rather engage with somebody with questions than getting stuck in a doom scroll on Facebook.
Yeah, right.
So, I say if you're looking at stuff like this and these podcasts, utilize it. I mean, it's a great service you're putting out, but there's a hidden service behind it that it's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
It's a room created for people to engage with. that I bet a lot of people don't engage with, thinking that they can. You know, when I met Helsan and Rickson, you know, people say, "How did you get Rickson? He has new practice for anybody. How did you get that?" I said, "I don't know. I just asked."
Right.
And I asked. And he said, "Okay." We met. So it's almost like the old the analogy, like when you see in school, like they talk about like the hot girl in school doesn't have a date for the prom.
Right.
Got one. Like, just ask. So I think this is an important room for those people. They can absolutely do it, but don't be afraid to ask questions when you go. You're the customer. It's no different than going on to a used car lot. I'm not saying they use car sales.
No, I get it. Yeah.
They're going to sell you. Let's be honest. A lot of schools are going to try to sell you. Buy now, we'll save you money.
Right.
Don't be pressured. You know, start learning, start taking your self-defense journey with, you know, Horian, or I guess was the right to defend yourself. Horian Gracie. I think he kind of Defend Yourself was Richard Bresler's book. That by the way,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And Defend Yourself was, I think, a line taken from Horian Gracie,
Okay.
who had a great way of speaking. Probably my favorite instructor of all people I've ever had anywhere.
Really?
Oh, Horian's amazing. Oh, without a doubt, the best instructor. He did a video years ago when, at the time, his son's name was R10. I don't know what his name is now. He did a diaper changing video that was a masterclass in changing a diaper. It was crazy. He's an absolutely brilliant. But one of the things he says when people start learning, especially women, the first thing you have to learn if you want to do this is that you have to decide that you have the right to defend yourself.
That's interesting.
That's where that kind of book thing came from, as far as I understand a little bit. And yeah, so take that ownership of defending yourself from the minute you start walking and shopping. Walk to a school, talk to them. Don't let them bully you, because that's what it's going to feel like. You go to a school, learn self-defense, and all of a sudden you're getting bullied into pressured. Buy now, so we'll save you the initiation fee. It's so just backwards.
Right.
So if you're going to start shopping and looking, decide that you start early on. You've already decided you have the right to defend yourself. That's where you're going.
Right.
Start with the moment you walk in the door. Declare your space when you're talking to them. Let them know what you want. I'm looking to find the right community. This is not just learning the techniques, which I'm sure you guys are great at. I'm looking for the right community. You know, some people go to church, they just go to any church.
Right.
Some shy. I moved from here. My parents were churchgoers. When we moved from New York to the Carolinas, when we moved years ago for a little while, they wanted to find a church. They didn't walk into the closest church. They shopped churches.
Right.
Wanted to find the community. Now in the church is interesting too, because they want you in the right community too.
Sure.
And I think if the business owner handles this properly, they should be doing the same thing. They should be trying to find your community like you are.
Yeah.
But don't trust that. If you're going to shop for school, to your first question, decide you have the right to defend yourself and go as your own advocate, like you would to a doctor when you're looking for schools. Ask to sit on, watch a few classes, forget the instructor.
Right.
Look at the people you're going to train with.
Yes.
How are they talking after the class? Are they smiling? Are they happy?
Right.
Do they look like a bunch of angry drunks at the bar? I don't know. Like, is this a room you want to be in?
Yes. Yeah, we had a conversation with Professor Jason Cruz, who you likely know, and he was.
I know of him. We haven't met personally.
But he has you apply to be a part of his school. So to come be a student there has to be. He forces that issue of before we agree that this becomes a financial exchange, let's make sure that there's value there for both of us. And he creates this process by which this is not transactional, because when you come in, we're going to see you not just as a customer. We're bringing you into our community, which means that I have a commitment to you that extends beyond just, you pay
right.
a fee.
I do the same thing. I've done the same thing in the past. I've changed it a little bit, but I have the same concept, because the other thing is too, you got to figure, just like kids. Like again, it's funny how many things I've learned to do with the adults that I started with the kids. And people. The kids program, I decided long ago, I don't know if we talked about this yesterday, up until about 9 years old, I don't teach the kids submissions.
Yes, right. Yes, you were saying that.
Right, for all those reasons.
Right.
I don't want to make bullies better bullies.
Yes.
What I would teach kids, for the most part, it was like literally defensive. You couldn't attack somebody with a shield, so to speak. Right.
I get it.
Yeah. And so the same thing with the adults. How do I know? Like, I have cops and law enforcement in my room. Right. How do I know this next guy is not a criminal? Like, I've decided after doing a lot, we could talk about the Hickson Gracie project another time, maybe, if you want, but me and Scott Burrow working on something with Hickson that has opened up a lot of my thinking, even in my own school, that, like I'm now considering doing background checks for new students. Like, that's part of the thing is,
That's
background check,
interesting. Yeah.
and looking at the legalities and all of that. But even with teaching them, I mean, we're teaching people how to choke people out. I mean, effectively, I'm teaching you how to kill somebody.
Yes.
Like, it's got to be a lot of responsibility in that. So what I do now, even with the instruction, even like as you say, so from 94 till now, yeah, the jujitsu innovations have really improved. Even the self-defense. Health self-defense can be quite violent at times. As Rickson would say, it's more violent than it needs to be. It's just,
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, Helsan's jiu-jitsu comes from a very dark place. Rickson would say. Which I think look, it's great. If you know Rickson, he's the most loving guy in the world, but you not behind the bar, not in the back alley, right?
Right. Right.
So I could bring along my instruction and teach this newer version of this more dangerous jujitsu, but I've decided on purpose to teach for the beginners what I call UFC 1 jujitsu. So the Hoist Gracie jujitsu
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
saw,
Yeah. Right.
okay, on its highest level, we'll do amazing. But it's not the same jujitsu I could teach you today if you were in the military. I knew who you were and I trusted. I could teach you a much more quickly effective, more violent version. But I don't know who this guy is coming in.
Yeah.
So I got to start the new guy coming in, teach him basic jujitsu that's going to work against the average person
Right.
and still work for everybody. But it's not giving him like a machine gun of techniques to go out and be a jerk.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
yeah.
want my purple belts of today and my blue belts of today to always be able to beat up the blue belts and purple belts of my generation of the class.
That's interesting.
That's kind of my vetting process a little bit.
Right.
And I'll say this too. I think this is an important point. I know we didn't hit on it really. I think it's an important point that I'd like to, if I could pass something along to other school owners.
Yeah. Tell me.
We used to have a process of getting rid of people that were jerks.
Yeah.
And we all do. We all have the same process. We beat them up. Like if someone was rough on the students, I've watched Hoist, but I've watched everybody do it. If somebody was rough on Hoist's students, invariably Hoist is going to roll with the room. He's going to get you and he's going to maul you. I mean, maul, he's going to hurt you. He's going to come out with cheese grater face. You're going to come out, you're going to get your ass kicked. That's going to happen. And so every room had the enforcer. We all had enforcers.
Right.
And we had a time once, and again, I was doing the same thing. We all did it. So I'm guilty as charged. We had one guy come in who was a black belt in judo, and all my guys are trying to be nice. I'm trying to build this school, and he's beating the hell out of people. He's just being rough, and they're all trying to calm him down. Like they're all looking at me like, take it easy, let him learn. But he was being rough. So I gripped, and I did the enforcer thing. At the time, I was a purple belt. So this is going back 2002-ish. That's maybe 20 years ago or so.
Right.
And I turned the clock, 5-minute clock went off, and for 20 minutes, I mauled him. I didn't choke his neck. I choked his face. I choked his eyes. I think I might have cracked his rib. I'm not even sure. I mean, it was brutal.
Okay.
I kind of gave someone the high sign to yell time. When they yelled time, this guy got up. He went, "Whoa, that was great. Where do I sign?"
Oh, no.
What did I create?
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment that does, when it works, it works. But when it doesn't, and often it doesn't, it backfires.
Yeah.
I've now told this guy not only what he did was right, there's a better, more violent way to do it. I just made it okay.
Yeah, no, right. That makes sense.
So now now we get used to use your words. Let's get you from the beginning like the street, right? Use your words, guys. If someone's going rough, we stop the match. Tap. You tap. He taps, you're gonna stop.
Right.
If he can't handle it, we're going to keep baby stepping him back until the point that maybe he can only play bottom defense on the mount.
Right.
And if he can't do that with some control, he's going to practice upas by himself for half an hour.
Right.
And he's going to get sick of doing that.
Yeah.
And he's going to leave. He doesn't get sick of doing that and embraces trying to change. Phenomenal. Now I take a guy, make a massive change because we're going to talk to him. We're going to explain what's going on. This isn't a punishment.
Right.
This is a metamorphosis, and this is what it looks like. If that's what you want to be in our room, the good thing, this is what that process looks like. And it looked like that for all these guys.
Right.
You might say, well, Mike, this is how you trained when you started? I said, well, no, because I didn't have to.
Right.
You need this process. If they can adapt, perfect. I've given this guy the greatest service I can, and he's going to be one of the best guys in my room. Because now he's the guy. He's the prodigal son. He's the guy that's been transformed by these steps and will be the biggest advocate of it. Or he leaves. Either way,
yeah.
Right?
So it's a counseling process of sorts, but it's, rather than you can get the job done in a moment that could backfire on you, we're going to whip this guy's ass.
Ego fueled. Me kicking his butt is only me. Yeah, it's ego in some level. I can't say it's not.
Sure.
Look how great your instructor is. Look, I'll protect you guys. Come on. Like, it's just. It's
Yeah.
stupid.
You know, that you're the Helsan's techniques being more violent than they need to be, which is a funny, turn of phrase. Did that come about over time, or is that a disposition? Like he's just dispositionally Helsan, like
No,
a
I
little
don't know.
bit of a,
I can't speak to Helson that I didn't know. I only met Helson in 94, my first
well,
seminar.
right?
And so I think I was 29, which would have put him at about 39 or 40. He's 11 years older than me, I think.
Okay.
But he was still he was a killer from 40 to even close to 50. He was sharp as it comes. Yeah, I have to think this is this position. It's just who he
Right.
was.
Yeah.
Um, but it's interesting when you look at the learning curve of things. Like when you talk to him again, more and more, you hear the stories, the way he tells the stories. Multiple attackers. It's funny the way he thinks. He got in a fight once on the beach, and I'll give you the end paragraph where he beats the two guys up on the beach. The last guy runs from the group, runs into the water. Helson chases him,
What?
dives in the water, swims after him, and then chokes him in the water, pushes him
My
out.
goodness.
So the guy is now drowning.
Yeah.
So Helson goes, "Yeah, I got to take this guy now. I got to swim back to the beach. I saved the guy's life."
Right.
What?
What? Hold on a second.
No, you don't save the guy's life for the guy you choked out in the water. That's not saving his life, Helson. This is the way his perspective is hysterical and sometimes so funny and skewed. You go, no, dude, that's not saving his life. But he's got all these stories, and that's the guy I see. I just think that's who he was. I think he had a look like I have the thing in me that doesn't get attached to the eye. I'm not Helson.
Right. Right.
I think I have some of that in me. Like I think my DNA is we're a little hardwired together. So that's why his jujitsu speaks to me. I
Right.
love that thing in it. I could definitely invoke that thing to a degree,
Sure.
but I'd like to think I'm emotionally above it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've never, these are not people I've ever spoken to, but so reading about, Rickson and these fights on beaches and people showing up at the school to fight. This isn't a tournament fight. This is like a Vale Tudo. The So when you talk about Rickson being aggressive, like he likes a little spice with his defense, and then Helson being violent, is the difference more in the movement and technique, or more in the disposition? I guess was my question.
Well,
Like,
I think so. It's probably a couple of things. I think, hang on, I mean, Hickson may tell me I'm full of it. Like maybe I'm wrong, but my experience,
right,
when you're talking to Rickson or Helson and they're showing you techniques, and it's like just a jujitsu technique.
right,
And I see in my mind, and I see my face exposed to a punch. So my question will always be, what if there's punches?
right,
Um, every time I say that, Rickson and Helson will both say, Rickson, whoa, okay, so if it's Vale Tudo, and he'll start to address it. But
right,
he'll always say, if it's Vale Tudo, okay, if it's MMA, then I would do this a little differently.
right,
Yes, that the Helson, first of all, very often that thing doesn't exist. That Helson's teaching you something where I'm so greatly exposed to damage, it's probably not on the table.
okay,
But if it's a unique thing he's showing for a guard pass, Helson, what about punches? Well, in the streets, I do like this. Doesn't say MMA, doesn't say Vale Tudo. In the streets, I
in
do
this,
like that.
yes,
So he's very aware of even the ground. I mean, Helson's mount is unique in that when he mounts you, if he's really doing the street thing, his knees don't touch the floor.
yeah, right, okay. He's not on the
He
asphalt.
sits
He's not on
on
the
you
concrete.
opposite of Rickson, who will say, don't sit on me. I'm not a chair. Sit, you mount, you sit higher up.
Right,
Different approach. They're both right. But Helson, because man, everything that touches the ground bleeds. My knee touches the ground, I bleed. I rip
right,
my pants, I bleed. I'm in the bottom guard, I move around, my back's gonna be all blood.
yes,
So he respects the street and what it is, and then he respects all the approaches of the entanglement of the street.
right,
So from the very beginning, from the platform of logic he's starting from, it's already different.
yeah,
And therefore it does need to be more violent. Now he's told me since he's 40 years old, Mike, I can't fight 2 minutes. I don't train like I used to. When he stopped competing, because he went like 26 years undefeated in black belt and competition. I don't think as a black belt anybody ever passed his guard or anybody scored a point on it. His tournament record was insane.
wow, 26
Um,
years,
26 years straight. Now it was, yeah, people say, well, the federation was new, there wasn't a lot of competition. Whatever. Some guys
26
had to be
years,
the first, some guys had to be the first ones there, right? It
right,
wasn't his fault, it was him. So yeah, maybe he had a little bit of an edge. Whatever. In all those things, he didn't learn how to fight in the street. He learned jujitsu for the tournament.
right,
But it always mattered for the street. It had to come back and not be ineffective in the street.
Right.
So it's just the way he's wired. I lost some of my point right there. Something's blowing across my porch. It distracted me. Yeah, but for the street the differences between the two of them, Rickson doesn't think the same way.
Yeah.
So if I'm mounted on Rickson and my knees are in his armpits, it's like, no, just walk up. We all do that shimmy up. Helson's mind. You're never there because if I have to do that, I'm scratching my back up on the ground. I'm getting puffed up. I'm getting all of that. So,
Right.
oh, that's what I'm saying. I just caught my point again. So he'll say, even when he was 40 years old in this great shape, no fight I have is ever going to go more than 2 minutes. Now he says a minute. It's changed. Used to be because I don't have the endurance anymore. If I'm going to get in a fight, it has to end in 2 minutes. If you're too tough for me to not take advantage of 2 minutes, I'm going to get tired. I'm going to get winded. I'm going to start losing my energy.
Right.
Now, well, it's not the Gracie philosophy, and it's not what, Elios. We're not talking about philosophy anymore. We're talking about being in a real fight for your life. With three friends running after the fight, ready to jump into you. So now he says a minute. Mike, I got a minute. If I don't end this fight in a minute. So it has to be, by nature of that rule set, fast and violent and strategic and surgical. Everything he does is really based on, if you approach him the way he stands. He stands all the time stand like this. That's part of his self-defense mechanism, fam.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Faces somebody. So yeah, it is more violent, maybe unnecessarily so according to Rickson, but if you're the guy in the street winning the fight, no, it's not. Totally necessary.
This is appropriately violent. Yeah, I need this violence. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. The and it was their lives like fraught with a lot of street violence, that perspective is born out of necessity, or is it just a philosophy? I mean,
no, I think it was born out. Well, I think first of all, I think Elio. You can read the books. I think the stories I've heard. I've only met Elio a few times on that great cruise. I spent a week with him.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak English. He hear everything from DeLorean and whoever.
Yeah.
But even the old stories, you'd see the old advertisements. They wanted to learn how to fight, and they would have ads in the paper. If you want your arm broken, your legs broken, come challenge us.
Right.
Like
yes. Yeah.
The original challenge match in the school.
Yeah.
In action tape. So yeah. Now what comes along with that is the fact that you got to be wired a certain way for that. And I'm sure Elio. Come on, I don't think it was the healthiest environment to grow up in. I'm sure Elio prodded his sons to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a story with Helsan and a soccer in a game where Elio created the fight between him and some soccer guy. Helsan, come here, kick his. Like, it's just they were raising a samurai clan.
Yeah.
However you feel about that is that, but there's a necessary order of operations if you're going to do that successfully. And then with that, you're the tough guys on the block. And, I think the surf culture is interesting too. I never knew this, funnily enough. I grew up in New York watching all the sun-kissed soda commercials in California. And I didn't realize, I always thought surfers were like the coolest, chillest people in the world. Apparently they're not. Apparently they're really violent. You can't surf their beach. You can't surf their break. There's a line. You can't even go in the water. Like if I go to California and go at the wrong time of day, someone's going to break my board. They're going to try to kick it's a violent culture. These guys, so from their family to their surf culture,
right?
To the heated soccer Brazil. Helsan loves soccer.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's so encapsulated in all of their life, from their genes, their nature, nurture.
Yes.
Who's challenging them? I mean, Rickson's fun. You talk to the guy, and he's very evolved. You've read Breathe.
Yes.
And he's very evolved, and he'll talk about his dad. Now he disagrees with his dad's view of women, which I think is very, very enlightening.
I agree.
He's coming up. It's so funny. He'll talk about creating programs and letting everyone in, and he'll talk about, when someone wants to confront me with a fight and get in my face, I don't want to back out. I can't be chicken. Chicken? You say chicken? Can't be yellow? I mean, can't be yellow, boy. Like, dude, okay, he's coming along, but yeah, you can be chicken.
Right.
We've had conversation, right? Say, hey, Rickson, if, he criticized me once. Okay, Mike, what do you do if someone does this? And I just took a couple of steps back.
Right.
No, you can't be chicken. You grab the arm, you do the move. And what happened to not getting into a fight? You're saying now, your new you is saying,
right.
The best fight one is to fight, not fought.
Right.
I agree. Well, so if that's true, you just can't give people permission not to fight and make it okay. You got to give them the tools to do that, like you give them the tools to fight.
Yes, yes.
What do they say? Give them the tools and the permission and also the practice. So like in my school, we train this, we make the guys go through scripts. You know, Peter, go beat him up, start a fight. And the other guy's, his job to avoid the fight.
Right.
How much is he willing to say to avoid the fight? That's a whole skill set and test the ego.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, well, when you talked about your childhood, you know, you ball-busting Irish, you know, family of antagonism in some level,
Well,
at the kind of what you
come
described,
to
right?
Christmas one day, come to my family Christmas one day, you'll be impressed with what goes on.
Yeah, well, I think about that and I grew up when I was in New York. I had a very large extended family, and half of them were Irish and half of them were Italian. And I had a lot of young men who were my uncles, and nobody was teaching me to fight, but it was like it was definitely a culture of like they could obligate you to violence. Like they're like, hold on, well, come on, we're gonna go.
And you
And
know what? It's so backwards because they would do that. They would put, hey, Helsan, roll with this guy. And oh, you're my favorite. Like it really was. Their
yeah,
manhood was being taken from them and given. It was really not like appropriate, honestly. I mean, it's just,
right, right, yeah,
it was unhealthy.
yeah,
But again, if you're trying to create a certain thing like that, it's necessary.
yeah,
Like I joke a lot with the guys, and even with Helsan, I even said this to Helsan, like to his face. Look, he's an absolute scientist. He's a genius when it comes to fighting.
right.
Like the things he does, and this story, I go on for hours with stories of even the little things he's done. Who thinks of these things? You know, who thinks of these things this way, like other than you?
Right.
And so if I'm gonna have someone teach me to fight, he's the only guy. He's my guy. Like
Right.
when I met him, that's my guy. Brilliant and a genius. I will never ask him for marital advice. I will never ask him the best way to raise my kids. And we've had fun joking with that, but
Yeah.
just because you're a genius in one area doesn't mean you carry everywhere else.
Yes, no, that yes, indeed. Indeed, that's funny stuff. Yeah, and that's why I mean for me it's an interesting balancing act when I think of myself as a father primarily to daughters. Like I have four daughters and one son, and that balancing act of when you're talking about how to meet antagonism, you know, how to get to not be in the conflict. You know, the best martial artist never has to demonstrate the technique. You know, you're not in the fight, so to speak. To balance that with the boundary setting that we've also talked about, like, well, it's not an unlimited set of boundaries between you and that person who might be antagonism. There has to be, you know, a time. And I find that some things are questions of knowledge, like you got to know things, and some things are questions of wisdom, like you need to understand, you know, when do you do what when, and at no point in time this knowledge and wisdom, do you have enough of either, right? So we are
Right.
who we are, and you know the sins we carried as youth still exist. You know, as much as I'd like to think I've outgrown everything that it didn't serve me well as a youth, I haven't. You know, and it exists at different proportions than it did.
Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
there is. I mean, honestly, doesn't that kind of make life a little exciting to know you still have a way to go?
Oh yeah, got
More
plenty to
growth?
go. That's the truth. Yeah, you know,
So I
well
think that's a
said.
good way to look at it. And to the point of this, even with your kids, I think, you know, it's funny. I think, yeah, and I do agree that the fight not fought is the fight won. I'm 100% on board with that. I also believe that there's a couple things that have to happen in order to be successful at that at a more predictable rate. Number one, if you're really good at fighting, you're not going through an inner turmoil of being afraid and
Yes,
being
yes, yeah,
an animal stuck in the corner. That's what
right.
the skill set of fighting does. It lets you be the animal not cornered.
Yes,
React. I think I just got blocked. Okay, I thought I stopped there for a second. It lets you not be the animal stuck in the corner
right.
that hopefully you never have to attack. But at the end of the day, you've also got to learn how to do the other things too, how to practice getting out of it. And I don't think people do that. And so what happens sometimes, we've talked about this to students. I know it's happened to me. And so I just share my experience. You know, it's going to happen to you too.
Right.
When they're in the room, now you come from New York, so you know some of the cliches of the way people talk, the Italian culture and the Irish.
Yeah, yeah.
When I let them go through kind of a simulation, fight simulation doesn't start with the punch.
Right.
It starts with altercation.
Yes.
When one guy's trying to start a fight with the other, I said, look, you got to be the bad guy. It ain't feel funny doing it. Bucket. I want you to be the bad guy, bully him, push him around. And as you're doing it, the other guy has to now, come on, dude, take it easy. I don't want any problems. I got a bad head. I just had a heart surgery last week. I can't do this. Practice some ridiculous pattern breaker and things to say.
Right.
Guy attacks in this realm. Two things happen. One, the attack is big and overt and much easier to deal with than a sucker punch.
Right.
And two, if I just told you I had heart surgery last month and you still want to beat me up, my brain is doing, it's giving me a lot of life.
Yes, that's, yeah.
So it's freeing me of any guilt that, no, I didn't have to hurt this guy. He was going to kill me.
Right.
He thought I had a heart attack. Like, so that's all part of it too. But what invariably happens is people start goofing around in the school and they start picking up, oh, what are you going to do, tough guy? They start making these jokes as the assailant.
Right.
And invariably people start laughing because it's funny. They start getting over the top. They start getting dramatic and they start laughing.
Right.
What happens? It's going to happen to some of you guys. If you ever get in a fight and you start to go through this, I think there's big skill sets of anchoring and triggering and almost hypnotic to bring you back to this space. It's giving you a chance as you're getting out of the fight to get ready for the fight. It's getting you back to training mode. It's like you get to do a little bit of warm up and stretch a little bit. But you're doing it internally. Invariably, the person trying to get out of the fight will almost always laugh. Come on, man. And they just chuckle because that comes with them.
Yes.
And that happened with a few guys. You're not going to believe what happened last week. Some guys pushing me around in a bar and I'm trying to get out of it. And I just start laughing. He goes, it disrupted the whole thing so much because now the other thing is talk about being relaxed and at ease.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you're in a
Yes.
situation trying to get out of a fight and I'm actually laughing, imagine how relaxed I really am now.
Right.
I'm like a cat ready to go because it's a great feeling. I'm not fighting from fear anymore, which is a good place.
Yes.
This is more elevated, I feel like.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
You can employ the skill set to employ the things you know how to do, but you got to practice.
Yes, yeah, and there's like pattern recognition. What leads to the next thing, I think, is a part of what you're saying to me. In terms of how do you de-escalate at the earliest moment. Not let things, and part of that is not biting on somebody antagoizing you. Just
Yeah, I got stuck in the snow. So we get snow up here a lot. I guess probably 15 years ago. I got stuck in the snow in the streets because everyone, my neighborhood, all the people have to have their sidewalks perfectly clean. So if there's 2 feet of snow, there's 6 feet in the street. I get stuck in the car. Somebody's coming behind me, some younger guy, look maybe 10 years, big kind of a neighborhood Italian guy, big kind of burly looking guy. He's yelling, keep going. I said, I'm stuck. You got to back up. I'm trying to wave him back. He's getting angry. He's pissed. He gets out of his car. He starts walking towards me.
right.
Now, like Helsan would say, I'm trying to get out of the fight, but I'm thinking very bad things.
Right.
I'm already looking at the snow. I'm looking at where he's going to hit. I'm going to take him down. I'm going to stuff his face in the snow. Like all this is going through my mind in like a split second.
Right.
But as I'm walking, I'm still trying to, I don't want to fight. Like I'm going to beat him up. I still can't get my car out of the spot. What do I do? It's not a good situation.
Right.
So the guy's coming up. I'm going, come on, guy. I'm stuck in the snow. I'm trying to be as magnanimous as I can. Come on, man. I'm stuck in the snow. The car sucks. It's got bolt tires. He keeps coming. I finally go, what are you going to beat me up because I can't drive? Come on. And with that, he was disgusted with me. He couldn't believe I would even say something. He walked back to his car and left.
Right.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
But that only happened because I played with this so much with the students and myself and in my head thinking and conversations here. You've got to have this hardwired into your system a little bit.
I agree. Yeah. That's yeah. I'll tell you. So I've never told this story to anyone that's not immediately in my family circle. And
pay attention, internet.
Oh, good God! I shouldn't tell this story, but it's because it's not something to be particularly proud of. But so I had a daughter who was working in an ice cream shop, and some older guy came in and he took a picture of her without her permission, like just took a picture of her. And he came back in a second time and she calls, me, and her mom was like, hey, this guy's here and I'm afraid. And I lost my mind, so I like rushed over to this place and she's like in the freezer in the back, like she was afraid to even come out of this. The other kids were there, and it was one of those times where, like I said to the guy, I said, I just need you to know we are a breath away from, us going at it. So be measured in what you say to me. And it was a moment of I couldn't tell. Like when I nothing in the end, I did not strike this person. We did not get into an altercation. And I probably should have called the police and just been like, you need to know this is potentially a predator. Um, and in myself, it was one of those odd boundaries where not only did I want to protect my daughter, but I wanted to protect any future kid from this guy ever thinking that that's okay again. And I wanted him to know that that young girl is attached to people like me and that
No, I think you handled that great.
you're going to be, somebody be burying you in the desert if,
Yeah.
I called a variety of other people. But it, it, it still was a question in my mind of like, what was the appropriate boundary? Because this was an attack. Like if I was to, I came in looking for violence that I did not execute in the final analysis. And I don't know. When I think about my youth, like my uncles would have been like, you shouldn't have had any conversation. You just should have come in there and you should have just killed that guy, and that's that. And it's funny, I brought it back to my mother. I talked to my mom and dad about it. I'm like, part of it was I wanted to make the point. Part of why I didn't act is that I'm like, if I do this, I'm going to jail. There's all kinds of consequences that are going to be um, negative. But I guess when I talk about the balance of when do you act appropriately, I find it's always hard to know. But at the end of the day, I think it would have been a mistake for me to have attacked that person. I think that would have been like an error of judgment. But
Well,
at the same time, I'm glad I took it to, I'll be honest, I glad I took it right to the edge.
no, I think, in some cases, look, I wouldn't have called the cops.
Mm,
I would have done what you did. I would have been a little bit more aggressive, maybe. And for a few reasons. I think, it's again, I think there's a level of understanding and a deep level of understanding. What am I willing to say to get out of the fight?
right.
That,
Yes. Yeah.
that doesn't always apply.
Yes. Yeah.
So the other thing is, what am I willing to do to make my daughter feel safe? And what am
Well,
I willing
yes.
to do?
Thank
So
you. Yeah.
there's a lot to that. And I want my daughter to walk away knowing, look, just my kids call me because they're drunk one night and they drank.
Right.
I don't want them to be ever so afraid to do it again. So I got to support the fact that they did the right thing, even if
Sure.
you want that connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
My daughter ever felt unsafe in any situation. I don't ever want to thinking there shouldn't be a second thought who to call.
Oh,
Cops.
yeah.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
call me. If I think the
Right.
cops need to be called, I'll call my cops. I'll call the cops I need to call.
Yeah.
I think with a guy like this, now you can paint this a couple different ways. Like you could have gone in again, look, armchair quarterbacking and decide what
Yeah.
the best case is. You could have gone in, said nothing, cracked the guy, take his phone, smash it, no more picture. Maybe he gets seriously hurt.
Hmm.
Maybe you find that the guy's just learning disabled. Maybe
Right.
he was
Right.
taking a picture of
Yeah.
somebody else. Maybe your
Yeah.
daughter misunderstood. Maybe he took a picture of the menu.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables that could be wrong.
Right.
Or it could be the other case. He could be the beginning of a predator. But the cop's going to tell you, no, she's in the public space. He's allowed to do that. Grow up.
Yeah.
No, he's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
We're not having that. And so I think you start to weigh all the variables. I think the way you handled it was very good, personally,
Well, thank you.
because
Yeah.
I think you asserted a line that was clearly not going to get crossed.
Right.
There was no jabbering about where that line was.
Yeah.
You quickly ascertained, because you didn't say, well, it turned out he had learning disability. No, he seemed like a normal guy.
Yeah, what's
I thought-
ironic is she got fired immediately after this incident. And what I thought, yeah, so she gets fired because this guy was like their biggest customer. And in
Oh,
my
now we got
mind,
we're going down a different road now.
well, in my mind, I was like, I'm so glad that you're not working there. Because if these people like can't recognize that this older guy is in there so much that he's the biggest customer and that my issue with him is that he's taking pictures of my teenage daughter, anyway,
They did her a favor. They did her a favor. They clearly told her what their standards are.
yeah,
They
exactly. Yeah.
told her how much they care about her, what her safety meant. So yeah, honestly, I would say, and as soon as it happened, yeah, my initial reaction is, oh, screw these, that's illegal. In the next breath, I'm saying they did you a favor.
Well, with
Thank
with
Thank
that,
God this happened.
yeah, that's exactly right. And to your point about like, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. I
Yeah,
think
that's
is
not,
like,
that's something I say, but it's clever. I like it.
yeah, I mean, it's a similar, well, let's do this. I would love for you to consider coming back another time, and I would like to talk about the project that you're working on with Scott
Oh, I can't